that's who you can hear and see in the Hollywood Squares gallery view boxes. If you are not a panelist, you're listed as an attendee. There are at the moment 45 of you. You are every bit as welcome as the panelists, you're just not visible. So it's not that there's a technical problem. It's not that we don't love you. It's not that we are trying to shun or stifle your voice in any way. It's just the way it's set up, and we will be monitoring the Q&A. We encourage you to use the raise hand feature when we get to public Q&A, so that we can have an orderly discussion that includes everybody. And I hope that's clear why people aren't appearing in the Q&A. So I'm going to dismiss those questions that relate to that. And then I will begin with a little bit of welcome. Also, okay, thank you, Katerina. I hear that you're ready. And when we get to that part of the agenda, we will bump you up to a panelist so that you can share your screen with your presentation, as well as Eamon. Okay, so it's 6:35, which by my measure, only running 5 minutes late, not so terrible. I'm calling this meeting to order. I want to welcome everybody again. I think we've got the administrative and announcement piece out of the way. Oh, wait a second. I just want to change my background view to one of our beautiful parks instead of Fenway, because Fenway is not within Community Board 12. Let's go with this one, shall we? That's a classic. All right. I'd like to begin with a moment of silence, not only, just to honor the upheaval and uprest that has been happening in our community, in our city, all over our country, and frankly, all over the world. And for many reasons that are sad, although I personally am optimistic. That's another conversation, but I would like to remember George Floyd, who was laid to rest today, Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, Maurice Gordon, Tamir Rice. There's just, the list is incredibly long, who have been killed in acts of racist and homophobic and transphobic aggression. It's particularly important in this month of Pride to recall that homophobia and transphobia overwhelmingly affects people of color. And I just think we need to hold all of that in our hearts. And in this month of Pride, I think it's also really vital to recall that there would not have been a Stonewall uprising had it not been for trans people of color. So we owe all of those people whose names I mentioned and whose names I did not a debt of gratitude. I also want to us to hold in our hearts the gentleman who, for reasons that I cannot fathom, decided this morning to take his own life in Fort Tryon Park. So with that, thank you. For folks who have taken the opportunity to leave their apartments, and I hope that's many of you at this point, albeit while wearing masks and washing your hands and using Purell, there are many, many, many murals up and down Dyckman Street, on 181st Street, in many places throughout this community, honoring George Floyd and honoring many people who have died in acts of racially motivated violence. And I think that they are really a moving tribute to the power of art to tap into what we're thinking and feeling, and as an act of healing. So I applaud the artists. I thank them. I thank the business owners who have graciously allowed and encouraged their boarded up business windows to be used in this way. I think it's healing. I think it brings communities together, and I encourage you to check out some of these murals. I want to give an update on the Lenape street co-naming, which is to say there is no update. We are just continuing to be mindful of it, and I believe we will be circulating petitions over the summer and having an update on that in the fall, and moving that to a resolution and a recommendation to the City Council in time for their December street co-naming bill. I'm going to put a footnote to here to just ask Jennifer when she gives her report to give any updates on parks, usages, prohibitions, suggestions, dog runs, playgrounds, anticipated openings, any additional closings, that kind of stuff. I think it's probably easier if you address that in your report. I was going to talk about parks usage during curfew. Thank God I don't have to talk about that because that curfew is over. I think that so far in terms of protests, demonstrations, and rallies, I want to thank Chris and all of his colleagues at the 34th Precinct who have done in the protests in which I've been a part in this community, have done an extremely good job of working with the community. And other people may have had other experiences, but from what I have seen and heard, the 3-4 has done a good job working with the people of the 3-4. And I think that's the difference between being policed by a precinct where you know the officers and they know you, versus having a force of officers from other precincts who do not know the community, just sort of come in and not really know who they're dealing with. Hold on a second. Okay, is that my agenda? Fantastic, thank you, thank you. My mic is on, hold on a moment. Sorry about that. My husband's not quite as adorable as a 2-year-old busting into a meeting, but I think he's cute. So I think 2 other short things. One, the reso that we had at our last meeting about the Inwood Hill Park ball fields 1, 2, and 4, that passed overwhelmingly, 41 in favor, none opposed, 1 abstaining, and 1 not voting due to conflict by virtue of working for the agency involved. So I feel good about the work that we did there. And lastly, and we'll actually come back to this at the end of the meeting, but I just want to put a bug in the ear of the committee members that we are not required to meet over the summer, but there's so much going on that I think having a meeting over the summer, it will be optional. You're encouraged to attend. You're not required to attend. Your lack of attendance will not be any kind of a mark against you in terms of attendance requirements for other board service. But I think it would be great if we can think in terms of having a meeting in July, certainly in July and possibly in August at our usual time, second Tuesday, 6:30. July 14th happens to be my husband's birthday, and he was okay with scheduling a meeting at that time. So if y'all can just kind of think about that, and at the end of the meeting, we can check in and make sure that works for everybody, and then advise.
It's a Bastille Day.
It is 14 juillet. Alors. So, so that's all of that. Actually, show of hands up, body language, smiles, thumbs up. Does July 14th work for you, committee members?
Yes.
Etsy, Etsy? Okay, so we'll assume it'll be scheduled again. We don't need a quorum because we can't conduct business, but I think it's a good opportunity to check in with each other about all things parks and arts. So with that, it's 6:44. I want to invite Daryl and Danielle, who both reached out to me separately, to just take a moment and give a heads up about Pride events of which they are aware, or which they may be aware in the community. Unfortunately, a lot of the usual Pride events are not happening because of COVID. Daryl, what you got?
Sure. I will just say happy Pride Month, everyone. It's been an interesting one so far. I do know, coming from the City Commission on Human Rights, there's actually a forum tomorrow evening on the parallels between HIV/AIDS and COVID, looking primarily at discrimination cases as well as the government response to the pandemic. I know Queen's Pride had a virtual Pride this past Sunday, and I'm still waiting to hear, maybe someone else knows what the New York City Pride will be doing, but I'm sure they'll be doing something on the last Sunday of June. And I also know that the Commission on Human Rights is having 2 Netflix watch parties. One is this Thursday, A Secret Love, beautiful story about a couple, lesbian couple, who are, I believe, in their 90s. And then also later this month on the 24th, I believe, The Death and Life of Marsha P. Johnson. So stay tuned for that as well.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Danielle, did you?
Well, I reached out to Richard. I think Richard said that he would make any announcements. He's on the CB12 LGBT task force. The only thing, if I may,
Yes.
I'd really like to read the message that Callan Lord has posted. Callan Lord is an LGBT health center. They're the leaders, in my opinion, in New York City LGBT health. And they posted something on their website. May I read it?
Please.
Okay.
And if
so
you can also email it to Noble so that he can more easily drop it into the minutes.
Sure. So yeah, again, I don't know of any events. I just thought it would be great if there were any events for us to talk about it. But I looked at Callan Lord's website to see what they were advertising, and this is what they've said. We have decided to postpone tonight's Pride 2.0 event to stand in solidarity with those putting their bodies on the line in our city and our country to combat systemic racist violence. The Stonewall riots that sparked the modern day LGBTQ plus rights movement were a rebellion against police and police brutality. There would be no pride if it were not for the Black and brown trans women who stood up and fought back more than 50 years ago. Each day we recommit ourselves to caring for those who have been oppressed while advocating for health justice and health equity. Health equity will not be achieved until systemic racism in healthcare is addressed. We mourn the murders of George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, Tony McDade, Breonna Taylor, and so many others, while we do our part to heal ourselves and our communities. And so they will have more information available, but I just wanted to read that statement. I thought it was pretty beautiful. I'm not, Jim is, oh, I forgot his name right now. Richard Ullman, are you on the call?
No.
Oh, okay.
He is not.
Okay.
He may join us later. Daryl?
I just want to say one more thing, that the city government did put together, many different city agencies in the mayor's office put together a website specifically for the response to COVID in the LGBTQ community. It's nyc.gov/LGBTQ COVID.
I'm sorry, nyc.gov/LGBTQ.COVID?
No, just COVID. LGBTQ COVID, one word.
Okay. Super. Thank you. Okay, I just want to catch up a little bit on the chat. Someone said, I would love to hear Parks speak, but please note that the amplified music without permit is so loud in Inwood Hill Park at the moment that it is actually hard to hear you. So I'm not going to talk about this at this moment in the agenda. But if you can also, Jennifer, just roll in some information about what to do about that. Also, tennis courts is the only other question that I'm seeing at the moment. All right. Brief programming updates. So one of my favorite parts of the meeting is hearing from our many friends and partners in the arts and Friends of Parks communities. So I will call on folks who raise their hands to give short reports from their organizations. Sally, I see your hand. I'm actually going to call on you last because as a panelist, you have lots of opportunities to speak, and I want to make sure that everybody else gets a turn. I do also want to say, I know I meant to mention this at the beginning. I know that many of you have joined this meeting because of an interest in the last item on the agenda, which is barbecuing rules and facilities in northern Manhattan parks. I know that some person posted extensively in and around Inwood Hill Park a flyer about this committee's plan to expand barbecuing into one of two areas in Inwood Hill Park, either the Indian Road lawn or one of the soccer fields, which soccer field was not stipulated in the anonymous flyer. I want to make very, very clear that this is a public body, and the way we make, and it's an advisory body, and the way that we make our recommendations is we have public discussions, including this one. So we will be circling back to barbecuing and talking about that. And I'm really glad that there are so many people on this call. We've got 74 participants, which is fantastic. But I do want to let people know that there is a 0.00% likelihood of expanding barbecuing onto the Indian Road lawn for any number of reasons, most importantly of which is that it is a complete violation of FDNY regulations, and it's a terrible idea. So that's not on the table. That's never been on the table. And everyone is welcome and encouraged to stay. But if the only reason why you were on this call was to strenuously object to that, you are also welcome to go do something else with your evening, because that's just not happening. That was never happening. It's not on the agenda. I cannot state it strongly enough. So with that, just want to make sure everybody takes a deep breath and knows that we're not doing that. So don't worry about it. So I see Jen Bristol, are you talking on behalf of the dog owners group or asking a general question about parks usage?
I thought it was just me, but I guess I could ask on behalf of the dog owners group since most of my questions affect the dog owners in the park.
Okay, so if you could just give your one.
Sure.
Dog owner.
Very quickly, we want to know if there's going to be any park monitoring or enforcement in Fort Tryon. The last few days, besides myself seeing it, many people have seen mopeds, including the, what is it called? The Rebel, is it Rebels or whatever, the rental ones in the park, socially, casually riding around as if they're allowed, in addition to the bikes, which are extremely, it's always dangerous. But now that we have so many lovely people in the park and so much of a community in the park, it's really hard to share with humans alone. And then you have to share with bikes coming down. And then it was really nice to see the other day parks employees or volunteers or staff handing out masks along Broadway in the park, but they were doing it in the AM, and just my personal experience, I feel like most people in the morning have masks, wear masks. The non-park, the people in the park that do not use masks or social distance are usually in the late afternoon to the evening. So maybe you can put that into motion, maybe handing out masks later on in the day. Sorry. And then wanted to know about the dog run opening because people were curious. And then lastly, in case you haven't realized, all the downpours the other day affected the path on top of the Dongan lawn. So now the path is danger. Actually, one of the reasons I'm talking about the bikes is I got out of the way so I wouldn't get hit, and I rolled my ankle because now there's less, the path is broken because of the downpours. It just broke the side of the path and
Okay.
it all went down to Dongan, to Broadway. And I think that's it.
Great. Okay, thank you. And I kind of did this in the wrong order. What I was looking for was, this is the part of the agenda where different organizations, cultural and parks organizations, give a report on what their organizations are doing. So those were all fantastic questions. That's more a part of Jennifer's report. So I saw her writing notes, and I look forward to hearing her answers when she gives her report later in the meeting. Next, we've got Julia Attaway, the newly appointed executive director of the Cabrini Shrine. Welcome.
You. I just wanted to pop in and introduce myself. I have been on the job for 3 weeks now, and you guys were one of the first groups of people that I wanted to talk to and introduce myself. As you may or may not know, Mother Cabrini is the patron saint of immigrants. And we are, as we look forward, we're looking to collaborate with other organizations that are doing things with immigrants so that we can bring people into the shrine and also participate in other ways. Even without a whole lot of programming, we've been getting, as best I can make out, we get 12 to 15,000 visitors a year, which is not an insignificant number of people coming in to pray and or figure out what they're doing. So we're really I wanted to just, whenever there's something where there's an opportunity for us to collaborate with other organizations, we'd be glad to talk to people.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Welcome, and feel free to attend our meetings whenever you're able. Next, we've got Alex Campos from the Hispanic Society. Welcome, Alexander.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Hi, everyone. Thank you very much for having us again. First of all, I just want to say that it's been a very interesting period in all our lives, and we've been addressing and responding as quickly as we can to all the needs of the community and our audiences across the country and nationwide. So I'm very happy that we're able to do that because of the determined staff, but also because of the support of Community Board. We had a wonderful concert in May, which was the first time we ever did a live stream concert. I hope many of you participated in that or attended that virtually. It's online on our website, HispanicSociety.org. We're doing a second live concert where we have I think we had 15 musicians and 5 singers. It was really a montage of music. The next one will be on June 25th. And it'll be, of course, we'll be posting on our website and sending out an e-blast. So if you're not on our e-blast list, please subscribe. Just going to our website, HispanicStudy.org, and sign up. We've been also doing some workshop for kids. We are actually very proud to be participating in the Uptown Arts and Culture Group collaboration with 14 other organizations uptown to create a summer camp. And it's going to feature music, dance, literary. I'm sure somebody from NOMA might be speaking on this in detail. But we're just very happy to be offering some drawing workshops, as well as dance and music workshops in conjunction, or definitely drawing. I think we're leaning the dance professionals, but we're definitely have some drawing workshops, and we're very happy to do that. They're free and they're open only to residents Upper Manhattan. And so that starts in July. Registration is due the 15th of June. And we're also doing more virtual programming as everybody is in response. And we had a wonderful series called the Tertulias, which are these conversations with the curators. We had one in May, we had one in June, and we have one in July. They are initially for our donor base, but we are making them to the public and will be on our website as well soon. So if you look at our website, we have lots of virtual programming going on. And we hope that people enjoy it and attend or listen and respond to our programming. Thank you.
Just a
Fantastic.
point of clarification, really quick, Alex. The summer camp, is that like a virtual summer camp or is that physical?
So it's going to be a virtual summer camp. So we're
Thank you.
still dealing with the fact that it's going to be, the issues that at hand. So there's like 15 organizations, and we're all taking like an hour or two during the week to do something that people can sign up for. Us parents can sign up their kids. And so the registration, I hopefully will be made available to the community board to help us express it. NOMA has been taking the lead on that, but we all have the site, so we don't have it. I'm happy to share it.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have Shiloh Holly from the Morris Jamel Mansion. But before we get to Shiloh, I just want to respond to something in the chat. Someone asked, what is the motivation for enlarging the barbecue area in Inwood Hill Park? Once again, I would like to welcome you all to the meeting of the Parks and Cultural Affairs Committee of Community Board 12 Manhattan. Community Board 12 Manhattan covers the area of Manhattan from West 155th Street to the northern tip of Manhattan, minus the little southeast corner of that area I just described, which is the Polo Grounds, which is part of another community board. When we said we wanted to discuss barbecuing in Community Board 12 Manhattan, what we meant by that was we want to discuss barbecuing in Community Board 12 Manhattan, in all of Community Board 12 Manhattan. Not at no point was Inwood Hill Park specifically mentioned. I hope that addresses that and alleviates that concern.
Liz, did you want me to jump in and add to that, just since it was my, I don't know. it was
At the
partly-
moment, no, I would happily welcome the comment when we're actually discussing it. I just, as things are popping up in the chat, I would hate, since it's the last item on the agenda, I would hate for people to be like fuming about a misimpression. So I want to just be really clear. And then we will have the discussion in its time in the agenda. But thank you. So with that, Shiloh, you're up.
Hi, Shiloh from the Morris Jamel Mansion here. So we are continuing our virtual programming this summer, and we are launching virtual Con Edison Family Days starting on Saturday. We have a bilingual educator that is going to be instructing families on how to make summer planters for their garden or windows. Registration for that is on our website. Additionally, we are starting to begin a new series called Lunch Break Lectures, which is going to run throughout the summer, possibly longer, where Mansion staff, educators, volunteers are going to do a quick lunchtime chat about a topic of their choice. So these programs are listed on our website. Additionally, the last program that I want to highlight is our next virtual parlor chat, which is going to be on the census 1790 to today. That is next Wednesday evening. And this is one of the many programs that we are starting to execute related to community and civic engagement. So all of these programs are listed on our website. That's morrisjamel.org.
Tell me again the date on that census conversation.
Next Wednesday, I believe that's June 16, 17.
17th. Yeah, that's actually kind of genius that you're bringing in that historical perspective. I really appreciate that.
Yeah. So the George Washington's inaugural year as president was when the census was enacted. So pertinent to us and community conversations today.
Nice. Thank you so much. Quick question for Dorkis Ramos. I'm going to unmute you and just ask you, are you speaking on behalf of a cultural institution in the neighborhood, or are you asking a general question perhaps related to barbecuing?
No, I'm deputy director for Uptown Stories. So I wasn't sure if my name was showing up properly since I used someone else's link.
Got it.
But good to know.
Well, in that case, Uptown Stories, tell us what you got.
Yeah, so we have registration going for our summer workshops, and we're also going to continue hosting them virtually. And we have, you know, workshops in poetry and fiction, how to comics and how to pair words with illustrations. We also have 3 new workshops this summer. One is about like kids will be drawing, creating little fairy houses and working on poetry as well, called Poetry in Miniature. There's also a songwriting class called Your Song. And our last new class is called Express Yourself. And in it, kids will be kind of exploring different facets of identity, which we feel is very much needed these days. And classes will start July 6th, and they'll run Monday through Friday for two weeks at a time. And there will be 2 hours long each day. And all information is on uptownstories.org. And we also have some free new pop-in workshops that will be twice a week for an hour each, and anyone can register, new or returning students between ages 7 and 17.
That is super cool. It makes me wish that I had young children. Thank you so much for those rich offerings. Chazil Montez, are you representing a community organization, arts, parks group? Or did you have a general question about another agenda item?
No, I am representing an arts organization here uptown. Thank you so much.
Can you speak up? I can barely hear you.
I'm so sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. I'm actually here representing an arts organization named Internal Creations, and I'm actually also here to introduce myself to you all. First off, thank you for having us here and for these lovely meetings, very informative. Internal Creations is just a small arts organization for classical guitar. Our mission is to develop leadership, self-sufficiency, and life skills through learning the classical guitar. And as of late, we've been having our classes virtually, and we've been having our Washington Heights program classes virtually as well. So we would like to just put that out there that you can always send us info. If you are interested, you can always email us at info@internalcreations.org or visit us at our website, www.internalcreations.org, if you want to register and be a part of our musical family, is what we call it.
Okay, thank you. Welcome. I'm pleased you could join us.
Thank you for having me.
All right, Sally.
Wait a sec. Hold on, I gotta unmute.
And you don't, well, we can hear you, so you don't need to unmute, and you don't need to give any announcements for the Food Council because they have their own agenda item.
Yes. Okay, first for Ring Garden. As you know, community gardens are closed except for essential maintenance by order of the Parks Department. We have extended our membership 6 months. We do have 4 working groups going on to do the essential maintenance, and we sent out an email calling for members. The 4 working groups are the gardening committee that plants, waters, weeds, mows, prunes, fertilizes, and does other gardening activities. They meet about once a week. Second is the compost committee. As you might be aware, the city of New York has paused composting, but we are still continuing our small composting operation. We have established, rather than members being able to come in at any time, for non-volunteer members, we have established drop-off hours on Saturday mornings from 9 to noon. The third group is the Pond Solar Committee that works on maintaining the health of our pond, the solar system, and plumbing and carpentry. And the fourth group, which is my favorite, of course, is the Ring Monarch Project. As many of you all know, and you can probably see from my picture, I'm quite a fan of raising the migration of monarchs. We've been working since 2017, starting with a project in conjunction with PS 98, the Shirakapak School, to build a monarch way station in the park. We've been building them all over the city. So this year we will be turning the Ring Garden into a way station. So we're soliciting volunteers for that. And then second, representing Friends of Inwood Hill Park, We have been doing some work solo in the parks, but until we get the go ahead for group events, we haven't held group events. We will be kicking off a self-distancing Beautified Broadway initiative to help take care of street tree beds. You'll be hearing more about that. And then obviously, we've been working with the super stewards in forestry on invasive species removal, hopefully getting them back into the parks as soon as we can do that. But just stay tuned. We have websites for Facebook pages for both of those groups. And that's about it. And also just one note on the Food Council. In addition to Katerina here to present, also there are 2 other members that will be presenting.
Yes, I know, and I will be unmuting them.
And Ursa and Tyreek. I don't know, if Katerina put Tyreek in her question, but that's the 3rd one. He's listed on
Yeah,
participants.
yep, got it.
Okay, good.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
And last, rounding it out, I believe Jennifer has a couple of cultural announcements. So she's gonna put those out, and then we will move on to Washington Heights Inwood Food Council. And just before you do that, Paola, if you're still here, can you?
You need me to share a screen with Jennifer?
No, if you can promote Tyreek and also Can Ursoy to panelists.
Okay, gotcha.
And if you can make me a host. So that,
You're already a host.
oh, I already am a host, fantastic. And then that way I think I can.
I missed the other name. You gave me 2.
The other, so it's Can Ursoy and the other name is Tyreek.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Okay, Ms. Hapa.
So on behalf of the New York City Parks Department and Lotus Music and Dance, I wanted to let everybody know that this year's Drums Along the Hudson, our annual Native American and drumming and dancing from around the world festival that usually happens in Inwood Hill Park, is going to be virtual.
Oh.
June 20th is the date. I can send around the Zoom link to everyone. And what's particularly exciting is this year our honoree is Joy Barjo. She's a poet, musician, playwright, and author with a distinguished career in helping audiences realize the wrongs of the past, not just to Native Americans, but to oppressed communities in general. In 2019, she was elected chancellor to the Academy of American Poets. And then last year, she became the first Native American to hold the honor of United States Poet Laureate. So we're definitely sad it's not happening in the sacred lands of Inwood Hill Park, but we're delighted to have connected with Joy. And so everybody tune in June 20th, and we'll ask the community board to send out that link to everyone.
Outstanding. Yeah, if you can send the flyer, and Paola, if you can just be ready for that and to send it out. It's a wonderful event, and I'm delighted that it's happening virtually. And last but not least, I'm gonna turn it over to Martin Collins to give the NOMA report. And just while he's speaking, in addition to listening to his every word, if there's anybody from a parks or cultural organization that I missed and who would like to give a 1 or 2 minute presentation, please raise your hand and you will go next. Marty.
Thank you, Liz. Good evening, everybody. The Northern Manhattan Arts Alliance, the 2020 Uptown Art Stroll, is a virtual online art stroll this year. And each Thursday evening at 7:30, we feature a different Uptown artist, and that'll continue through July 30th. We ask you to please join us this Thursday at 7:30 for artist and illustrator Josefina Hernandez, who will show us her artwork on Zoom and Facebook Live, and you can go to artstroll.com for information. In 2 weeks, on Thursday, June 25th at 7:30, we will see a cavalcade of paintings from Art Stroll Past, courtesy of the chair of Parks and Cultural Affairs, Elizabeth Loris Ritter. Yes, Liz will be in the house for our June 25th open studio, and you won't want to miss that. A couple of programming notes about events coming up in the next couple of weeks, and you can see our website, nomanyc.org. That's NOMAANYC.org, First is the Uptown Arts and Culture Summer Camp collaboration, 15 Uptown arts groups. Those camps will take place July 6th through the 17th and 20th through the 31st online. Second, entries for the 9th Annual Dominican Film Festival has been extended to July 1st. Third, NOMA's Census Coloring Contest for Children. The deadline is June 20th, $50 prize for the kids. And lastly, the Community League of the Heights and Sisters Uptown Bookstores Book Club with author Karen Taborn will take place this Saturday, June 13th at 2 p.m. Details on those and many other upcoming events this month at nomanyc.org. Thank you.
Fantastic.
Hey,
Thanks so
Liz,
much.
from
Yeah.
a secretary perspective,
Mhm.
do you mind if I have that emailed to me or
I
something?
will put that in the chat box to everybody.
Oh, thank you. Even
That's
better.
enough. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Fantastic. If you could also email it to Nobles so that he can cut and paste it. I see, I don't have any more. I got one raised hand. I got Alexis on the screen. I'm gonna unmute you, but before you jump in, I was reminded by another attendee that today is Aaron Sims's birthday. So that's, I'm guessing, why he's not on the call this evening. But if you happen to bump into him virtually or in real life, wish him a happy birthday and thank him for all that he brings to the arts in Inwood and Northern Manhattan through Inwood Artworks. He's been doing a lot of really interesting programming virtually, including a virtual film festival and singing storytelling, and it's really quite fantastic. So with that, Alexis, 2 minutes.
I was just going to tell you I'm off
Okay.
for the call. I'm
All
leaving
right.
now.
Thank you. Also, Short Film Friday he's doing. Arilyn, are you giving an arts or parks group report, or do you have a general question about something else? Hello?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Good evening. My name is Airline, and I am the founder director of the Latino Film Market, and we have programming for this upcoming July 27th to August 2nd. We are going to be doing a virtual film festival. We have art, we have a Latinx concert, and we also have films. And I would love to share all the information with you guys. And also I would love to see how can I also partner up and be able to join the 15 other cultural organizations, if there's
Okay.
any way.
Well, I haven't quite figured out how to post general chat in this format. That seems to be an option that's not enabled in the same way as other Zoom platforms. So I'm going to give you my email. It's LIZRITTER.cb12m@gmail.com. LizRitter.cb12m@gmail.com. Please email me, forward a flyer about your events. I will send it along to the board office. You can also email Paola Garcia, our deputy district manager. Her email is pgarcia01@cb.nyc.gov. And that's a great way to get the word out about your event. And thank you and welcome.
Do you have a website by any chance I can include in the notes? Or
Yes, it's latinofilmmarket.org. Thank you.
Latino Film Market. Excellent.
.org. Thank you.
Thank you. Allegra, are you reporting for an arts or parks group, or do you have a general question about another agenda item? Allegra Legrand, going once, going twice.
I don't know how, oh, did I unmute myself?
I have unmuted you. Do you have a report from a cultural affairs or parks group, or do you have a question on an agenda item?
I thought I had asked a question about a new business item, but I didn't think it would be asked in,
Right, okay, so I'm gonna go back to muting you. I'm gonna lower your hand and I'll circle back to you in the appropriate part of the meeting. Hilda, same question for you. Are you?
I'm a resident.
Okay, are you representing an arts or parks organization, giving a 2-minute, 1-minute report on your organization? Okay, so I'm gonna lower everybody's hand so that we can move the agenda and get to what it is I think y'all want to discuss.
I just wanted to know when is it open for questions and answers?
Okay, so we're hearing people's reports, and when you hear me say something like, I am now inviting the public to ask questions, that will be when it's open for asking questions.
Okay, thank you so much.
You bet. Okay, next it is 7:20, and we have up the Washington Heights Inwood Food Council. Welcome to Katerina and Tyreek and Can Emery, Ursoy and Sally. So if you guys can unmute yourselves.
Great. And Liz, I'm just going to quickly introduce the other panelists, and then I'm going to sit back and be a panelist for the Parks Committee.
Great.
Okay, Katerina Rivera, who many of you know is our founder and the fundraising coordinator. She has lived in Washington Heights for over 12 years, spending her life as an educator as well as a not-for-profit program manager, focusing most recently on food equity and community engagement. Currently, she's a senior manager of network capacity at City Harvest, where she's been for 4 years. Before that, she was at Harlem Children's Zone and an elementary school teacher in the public schools. As part of Teach for America. She is part of the under 40 in New York City food policy. As you know, if you've seen her anywhere, she's incredibly passionate about food justice. Our second presenter is Can Ursoy, who moved here. He's been a resident of Inwood for the last 12 years. He moved to the US from Turkey to pursue his PhD in sociology, which he received in 2016. Dr. Ursoy now teaches sociology at CUNY Kingsborough Community College. He founded the Inwood Urban Food Group, Inwood Urban Farm in 2012, focusing on expanding gardening and urban farming opportunities in the community. He was very active and participated in a number of their farming proposals. He came to the Food Council in 2017, and after a year decided to join our steering committee. Here he focuses on organizing and leading all the gardening activities. He's a garden coordinator, co-coordinator. And finally, Tyreek is the educational co-coordinator. He is a professional musician. He has over 300 recordings in a range of styles: jazz, funk, rock, hip hop, and pan-Latin musics. He's a scientist, focusing his research on the neural mapping of musical improvisation, and he's a professor of music and neuroscience at St. John's University. At the Food Council, he focuses on education. He also is very passionate around all sorts of community involvement. In addition to his role on the steering committee, he volunteers as a mentor for students at PS 204 and a science communicator for the Greater New York City chapter of the Society for Neuroscience. So I'm sort of outranked in terms of degrees. It's Dr., and Katerina, who's our queen, and I will let them take over. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having us tonight. We're really grateful for this opportunity to present our work and talk about the support that we're looking for from the committee. So I'm going to share my screen. Okay, it says the host disabled attendees screen sharing.
Yeah, we have to give you that. Give me 1 second.
Thank you, Paola.
You're welcome.
While you're doing that, I see oh my goodness, and Anastasia actually emailed me separately to let me know that she was going to be giving a presentation. So while we're figuring out that, do you mind if I let her give her report on Washington, on Fort Washington Park? It'll just be a minute. Okay, thank you. Hit it.
All right. Hello. Oh, sorry. I'm Anastasia. I am the North Park Outreach Coordinator at Riverside Park Conservancy. So we help the Parks Department take care of Riverside Park and also a portion of Fort Washington Park. So we work from 59th Street up to 181st Street. I just wanted to give you guys a few quick updates. Our Summer on the Hudson programming series, which operates throughout the park, is working on bringing virtual programming to our audience. Right now, we really only have health and wellness classes, some yoga, some Pilates, and things like that happening on Zoom for June. Our programming director is working actively to try to get some music in the scene. So coming soon, hopefully, I can share that link with you guys. Another programming thing, our sports camp is canceled for 2020, unfortunately, because of the Parks Department is not, as far as I know, submitting permits for fields and athletic courts and things of that sort. So canceled. That does operate a little bit further south. That's at 103rd, but we do have kids coming from all across the city. So it may apply to some families in the neighborhood. Let's see here. Our volunteer program, also, it's been, a strange year for that, but we have gotten an outpouring of people who have been writing to us, looking to help us take care of the park, like actually hundreds of people. So it's been challenging for the volunteer program staff like myself to kind of figure out how to get people started in the park safely and all of that. So that's in the works. I can share my email if anyone themselves would like to get involved helping take care of the park, or know someone, or if you're affiliated with an organization that would like to arrange for a group project in the park, please reach out. Yeah, please reach out. I'm here for that. And sorry, one last little, go ahead.
What's your email?
Oh, sorry. Okay. One last thing on a citywide scale, the Conservancy, we're really involved with the Playfair Coalition, which is a multi-year campaign looking to get the city to allocate adequate and equitable funding to its parks. And that's a citywide thing. The Parks Department gets less than 1% of the city's budget. And as all eyes are kind of on that process right now, we're working really hard to make sure that the city doesn't cut funding for the parks as it's slated to do. I believe it's looking at 60 million plus of cuts right now, which would directly impact like more than 300 parks employees around the city who could lose their jobs. So we have a petition that we're circulating, and I'll send that around too. Sorry.
Fantastic. Thank you very much.
I just need an organization and email. I'm sorry, Liz. I was writing an organization and email one more time, please.
Yeah. Riverside Park Conservancy.
Thank you.
And email is Anastasia, ANASTASIA at riversideparknyc.org.
Thank you very much.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. I'm sorry for overlooking you, and I'm sorry for messing with your flow. Katerina and Can, take it away.
Okay, thank you. So I just want to let everybody know it's pronounced John. So,
Thank you, Katrina.
So sorry.
It's all right.
Okay, so I'm going to share my screen so we can get the presentation going. Hopefully it works.
Hi, are you
Went to
okay?
school in Buffalo. I have very flat A's.
Honey?
Yeah.
Well, it's a Turkish name, so I'm used to it.
Okay.
Okay, I am having a little bit. Okay, so I have to change my Zoom preferences. John, do you want to start just with introducing our group and our mission while I open that up?
Yes. Well, we are here for in behalf of Washington Heights Inwood Food Council, and we are a community organization that was founded 4 years ago. And our primary goal is to, I'm looking at the presentation on the side here, is to encourage sustainable food systems and healthy food consumption in Washington Heights and Inwood neighborhoods. And what does this mean, of course, is for us to reach out to the community, to the members of the community, and to help them with, first of all, to have access to healthy food options. That is one thing. And the second is that to help them maybe potentially grow their own food and to be able to do it for themselves. And for this goal, for the last 4 years, we have been growing our organization, as we are going to detail in a second in the presentation. And we are trying to reach as many people within the neighborhoods and also as many other organizations with similar goals within the neighborhood as well. Okay, let me continue from here then. We also, another goal that we are trying to seek, of course, is to help people in the neighborhood to be able to take food justice and their food needs and healthy nutrition into their own hands, and to be able to demand and to act upon their needs. And for this aim, we are trying to create places where we can educate and provide education on nutrition. Oh, great. Okay. Nutrition and, of course, food justice. Okay.
I think you're looking for the slide view, right? It's right up on your underneath Win Food Council CB12 presentation under view.
Okay.
Or slide, whichever is easier for you.
Add a slide. Add a slide.
Add a slide? Why would that?
No, she said under slide or a view. She said something.
It looks like a box. Let me see. I'm sorry.
Okay.
There you go.
Great. Yay. Okay. My partner is helping me because I wear hearing aids. So which one are we on?
I think we are on our goals here.
So our mission is really focused on food justice, and we've outlined these long-term goals to increase the amount of public land designated for food gardening in our community, which is one of the reasons this committee is so relevant. We want to increase the amount of affordable and healthy food available in Washington Heights and Inwood, and also increase residents' awareness, knowledge, and self-efficacy related to topics like urban gardening, nutrition, healthy eating, and food justice issues affecting our community. Our organizational history, very briefly, we were founded 4 years ago, and we're really proud of everything that we've been able to accomplish. We were founded in March 2016. That year, a founders committee was established, and Sally has been part of that since the beginning, developing the mission, the vision, and everything, how we would operate. We have received grants from the Citizens Committee, and in 2017, we started a garden work at the Riley Levin Children's Garden in Swindler's Cove. And this is a garden that is maintained by New York Restoration Project, but we have a garden bed, and every year we've been able to increase our presence with them. We've hosted a number of different events, expanding our programming over the years. We started with potlucks, inviting youth into the garden, and hosting family garden days. Then in 2018, we received double of our funding from Citizens Committee, and we added another garden bed with New York Restoration Project, and we started our annual fermentation workshop, which has been really wonderful, a nutrition workshop series, and weekly garden hours. So in the first year of gardening, we just hosted events about once a month, or but now with the weekly garden hours, we invited community members to come in and harvest with us on a regular basis and be able to take free fresh produce home with them. And then last year, we received, again, funding renewal from Citizens committee, we were able to adopt a third garden bed in the garden. We launched our website and we were able to bring on our first paid staff member. And it's very, we're focused on expanding our capacity. We were invited by New York Restoration Project as a partner to apply for a federal grant. They were submitting an application, so we've signed on as a partner with them. And we have obtained formal fiscal sponsorship through Social Good Fund, which if you're in the nonprofit world, that's a very big step for an organization. That year we were featured in the Manhattan Times and also in a video that's up on YouTube that was produced by Tastemade for REI, and it features Swindler Cove and NYRP's work and us as well. So for our structure, our group is really grassroots and community-led. Everyone beyond our paid staff members are volunteer. All of our events are held bilingually, English and Spanish at the same time. We don't use headsets. We translate having the speech said in English, translated into Spanish right after, and kind of trying to have the language equity in that way. Our steering committee has 8 seats currently and meets on a monthly basis. And these are some of the areas that we cover. And I already mentioned we have a paid administrative coordinator. So our accomplishments, as I mentioned with our history, we've seen consistent progressive growth. We're celebrating our 4-year anniversary. We've received 3 years of funding from Citizens Committee. Every year, expanding our presence in the garden. And we've also increased our membership and our attendance. And we've been really working on, especially during this time, to share resources on social media and expand our reach and our audience there. Our website link is listed there, winfoodcouncil.org. These are some of our notable accomplishments. And I'll pass it over to Don.
Right. I will thank you, Katerina. I would like to talk a little bit about what we do in a regular year, at least in the last 3 years. And this is going forward what we plan to do for the coming years as well, of course, expanding with new activities. Now, our year is divided into 2, which is the harvesting season and the winter season. So instead of following the months, we follow the seasons. And during the harvesting season, of course, our primary focus is on gardening and on the garden space. And this is the space where we can meet with people from the neighborhood, from the community, through having these weekly open garden hours where community members can join us. And when they do, we would help them, show them basic gardening skills. And also if there is anything to be harvested, they can obviously harvest with us and take home some of the fresh produce to their homes. We also try to provide gardening education, not only to do gardening in our bed, but of course to be able to do gardening in any other given context, especially if possible at homes, in windowsills, any little spot that is available. We also organize family garden days. These are larger events where we invite families across the neighborhoods, especially with younger kids. And our goal is to try to educate the children about agriculture, about food, about vegetables. And the way we do it is we give them some basic skills. We allow them to dig into our beds and pick up carrots and harvest food with us. And they usually, of course, have a blast. While the kids are doing this in these family garden days, the adults and their parents, of course, are they also participate by usually having some sort of workshop. It's either about nutrition or about food. And during all of these gardening events, of course, whatever is produced, whatever is harvestable at the time in our beds, which is plenty during summer weeks, that the attending community members can share and take some of it with themselves at home. Now, in winter season, of course, there is no gardening. So instead, we try to focus on activities that are indoors and that are more about education. We have been doing fermentation workshop yearly for the last 3 years, and every year the people who are attending, the numbers of people attending have increased and the interests have increased, and we have got great feedback from the community. We also have documentary screenings and discussions. Of course, the topic is always around food and nutrition. We do organize potlucks, usually around holidays and Thanksgiving, so to bring our members and of course anyone who would like to join from the community together. And last year we have had our first holiday gift making workshop, to a workshop where members or participants would be able to make gifts that from sustainable materials related to, some of them related to food, some of them not, to be able to give to their loved ones. And that was a big success, and participants expressed great interest to have us do this in the coming years, and we anticipate to turn this into a tradition. Finally, we also have regular nutrition and healthy eating workshop series. We have done some of these at the garden during summer months and some of these in outside during winter months in other spaces. And they have been ongoing for the last 3 years. We have partnered with different groups and different organizations in these workshops, and we plan to continue doing more of these in the coming years. So we have some pictures to show you, to give you a sense of what it looks like, our activities. So if Katerina can go to the couple of slides. These pictures are from the Riley Levin Children's Garden, and you can see, of course, children are enjoying themselves. These are from our family garden days. I believe these are from last summer. And the next pictures, I think the next slide is also children, obviously, with in the beds. And these are pictures from our fermentation workshops. Over the 3 years, they're not from the same event, from 3 different events. And you can see the initial event here is on the side, and the numbers of people who are joining or participating are increasing. Okay, so next slide. Katerina. Thank you. Oh, thank you. So 2020 activities. Well, starting in 2020, of course, we had one primary goal in mind, and that was to expand gardening space, or at least take steps to expand gardening space in Washington Heights and Inwood neighborhoods. Now, to this end, we have reached out to other neighborhood groups and other community organizations throughout the neighborhoods. Some of them here that we are mentioning, Conectamonos, run by Dr. Yolanda Rosa. We reached out to Isabella Center for Elderly in order to create a gardening space, and they were very positive, and we started working together. We reached out to other people seeking in gardening space, small community organizations such as Papaya Garden. We have connections to Ring Garden, obviously through Sally, and to Friends of Inwood Hill Park. Now, the idea behind this at the beginning of this year was to create some sort of a coalition of groups from the both neighborhoods who are seeking the same goal of trying to establish more community gardening spaces across the neighborhood, whether tied to organizations or open to the public. All of these organizations have something in common. But of course, as with everything else, the COVID-19 crisis have put things to hold and has forced us to somewhat change our project for the 2020. So what we have been doing since the beginning of the crisis, of course, we moved our activities to online. So we had some Facebook Live activities with involving some of our members with yoga and self-care topics. We had a plant-based nutrition workshop with partnering with Plant Powered Metro NY, talking about the benefits of plant-based diet and the particular health, answering questions about health. We are going to have a home gardening workshop that is also online. Home gardening meaning, of course, giving people or teaching people the skills of growing their own herbs or doing their own planting in their windowsills at home. And of course, we have been still, as we have been in the last several years, we have been partnering with the New York Restoration Project in the Riley Levin Children's Garden. And for this end, that they were graciously helped us to plant the seeds that we have raised in our homes into the garden beds. So if in the future, in the coming months, that the Riley Levin Children's Garden is open to the public again, so we can pick up where we left, and the plants that they have been taking care of us would be ready for the community to enjoy and to harvest and to learn about. So can we go to the next slide, Katerina? Also, this being our 4th year anniversary, we decided to do a fundraising campaign, and for this end, we started an online donations campaign. The donation button is live on our website, which is www.WIN Food Council, WIN as in Washington Heights Inwood, WHIN Food Council. Our goal is to raise $4,400 in honor of our 4th year anniversary. Now, the reason that we are trying to, of course, spend more focus on this is that many grant funding review process have been paused or been delayed due to COVID-19. So many of the sources that we have relied on in the years previously is either delayed or we are not sure what is going to happen with them. That of course makes our fundraising campaign even more vital and more important for us in order to weather this crisis. And I think we have one more slide if we can move on to that. And what do we ask from Community Board 12? And we would appreciate any support to help us find space that could be suited for a garden, could be associated with an institution or free, unused public areas. The demand for community gardening in the areas of Washington Heights and Inwood is tremendous. Everybody who participates in our activities and all of the organizations that we have reached out share this goal. This part of Manhattan is particularly lacking in any community gardening or any urban food growing opportunities. So of course, any help with us finding space or creating space would be very, very appreciated. We are also seeking partnership with interested organizations who work with families in the Washington Heights and Inwood area. And of course, if Community Board 12 can put us in touch with them or to help us to get in touch with people, similar organizations, that is also would be greatly appreciated. Connecting to funding opportunities would also be greatly appreciated, given especially the times that due to COVID crisis, that a lot of funding opportunities are quite limited and they are on hold. And finally, we would ask help in advocating for the usage of the funds that were allocated to creating a community garden in the High Bridge Park. This was a part of the approved participatory budget project in 2015. We are aware that this is not going to happen in the High Bridge Park, but we would like the community board's help for advocating for us or for organizations across the neighborhood to use these funds allocated for community gardening in High Bridge Park to be used elsewhere for a similar purpose, to create community gardening spaces. And that would be, of course, greatly appreciated in any sort of help that might come in that way.
Great.
Yes, I think that is it. And we have, if anyone has questions, we would be happy to answer them.
Okay, can we kill the shared screen so that I can see the faces of the people in the committee? I will say that if we did not have an important but short presentation about art in Fort Tryon Park, a robust report from the Parks Department about the many questions that you heard burbling up, and then a fairly extensive discussion about barbecuing or not, and the rules and regs around that throughout the board, I would happily spend the next hour talking about this because it's hugely important. And, you know, hats off to the Food Council for all of the incredible work that you do, and to Sally for her continued advocacy in always highlighting your work. We've had as a capital item for a while wanting to identify places in the board for additional community gardening. I understand there are some issues with regard to lead in the soil and protection by fencing. And I think Jennifer had some points about that, but I saw first up Danielle's hand and Omar's hand. So I'm going to take questions from them first and then from Jen. Danielle.
Thank you. I was just going to say, my apologies if I missed this, but I was actually going to ask them if they've identified any particular areas that we could potentially advocate for. I know that you said it's been an item of ours for a while. Perhaps that preceded me since I'm newish to the board, but I was wondering for the presenters, have you identified any areas that are suitable potentially for a plot?
Yes, we have identified some places actually with our partnership with Conectamonos. There is one large space that belongs to the Department of Education on 10th Avenue and 186th. That is one potential place. We also have, again, a partnership with the Isabella Center, but that is a gardening that is tied to the institution. So it's not really open to the public, but of course, related with the organization. We also have seeked out to learn from Parks Department if the big sloping open area that is across, that is on Dykeman Street, that is across from the Manhattan Storage. There is a big sloping area there that is right next to the playground, and that is an underutilized place that takes great sunlight, but that is another location that is large enough in the neighborhood that we have identified so far. There are smaller spaces and some members have pointed them out, but we don't know about their status of who owns them or who we can go for them. So those are a couple of places that we have in mind to pursue.
Right, thank you. Omar?
Yeah, just a quick question for the panelists. Have all events been, due to COVID, been moved online, or is there anything that is occurring that is not online?
Well, right now, everything has moved online, unfortunately, because all of our events require people to be in close proximity because the garden beds are not that large. And as you have seen from the pictures, that was not going to be an option given the circumstances. So everything, until further notice, until we'll see what happens, is online right now, unfortunately, yes.
Yes, and the New York Restoration Project sets the rules for that garden where we have our beds right now. So even if we wanted to implement social distancing guidelines and implement some sort of activity there, we're not permitted to access the garden.
Right, right.
Okay. Yeah, there are many things that we can do online, including this. Online gardening, kind of hard. So Jennifer, can you talk a little bit about some of the particular parks guidelines, issues within parks areas within parks?
Liz, before we move on, can I make a motion? I would just like to make a motion for a resolution in support of exploring those two areas that they identified.
Wait. So actually, I would like to pause on a motion because I think in considering supporting a particular use, I think it's helpful to have not only the programming needs, but also the operational parameters. So what exactly the motion is that we might want to make would, I think, be materially affected by what it is Jennifer is about to say. Since I don't know what that is, I would very much like for her to be able to say it before we entertain a motion. Jennifer.
I thought we were moving on, sorry.
So sure, I think Parks through our Green Thumb program is very supportive and scaffolds organizations that are looking to do this on existing Green Thumb garden sites. The challenge becomes Green Thumb and community gardening sites have more restricted public access than public parks. For Green Thumb or gardening, it's generally administered, I believe it's something like 20 hours a week. And so from a legal standpoint, people could argue that it's privatization, right? It's no longer open to the public. It's no longer, people can't have their picnic there, or people can't, throw their ball there, or so that is a bit of a challenge. And then sort of another aspect besides the legal, what's mapped parkland, what's not mapped parkland, and public access and rights to equitable access is the safety of the soils. So New York Restoration Project is on mapped parkland, but they have a management agreement with the Parks Department. So Something to keep in mind about that site is it has 10 feet high steel picket fencing, and it does close early. So the level of control, modulates, and it's staffed all the time. So also started out as sort of a children's garden, that particular use. So going into another area, fencing it off, taking away what it's been used for, and then restricting access creates sort of legal issues. Health-wise, you also have the issue of being able to control the soil contamination. Right now, Parks doesn't allow any edibles to be grown on open, completely unrestricted access areas because of the soil. When the Department of Health looked at the community gardens, there was an issue that led in the soil there. In Parkland, we find an incredible amount, unfortunately, each day of construction dumping. We have certain religious practices with animal carcasses. We have people disposing of their pets frequently. And we don't, in many areas, we don't have gates. So the risk, we can't protect people against that risk of guaranteeing clean soil. So when we were looking at sites, first we had to look at what wasn't mapped parkland because of the restricted hours aspect of a community garden and people having to be members to participate except when there's a public program. So we have one site in the entire sector that's unmapped. It's contained, it has a fence. We felt like that could be the site that the Green Thumb program could issue a request for proposals for someone to operate a community farm that had extensive community outreach public programming. The challenge was we would be taking away what the community that advocates for that site wanted and came to Community Board 12 to ask for. So that sort of took that site off the table. So then we had been exploring with the council member's office, since he allocated the funding in the participatory budget, are there DOE properties? And one site that came up was on the George Washington campus, where there is some restricted controls to who gets to access it. Hadn't really had a designated use, so no one could say that they were being displaced. But I'm not sure that that's something that the DOE has embraced. The area next to Payson Park House, believe it or not, has wells in it. When we had the drought, wells were put in there. So that's not necessarily something that we want disrupted. It's also part of the forest. It's sort of buffer area of the mapped forever wild forest. And again, you'd be displacing, people use it for picnicking and gathering. You'd be displacing that and having restricted hours in an area that had always been, open and available, that's mapped parkland. So it's tricky. Rooftops are something that we've looked at because then you can control the soil and who has access to it. But then obviously there are issues with ADA. You want to have planting beds that everyone can get to. So it's not, there's no easy answer. I think, the council is smart to go to a site that's maybe like currently not used for anything other than say, it's a vacant lot, because then you're not displacing an existing use and you can, put in fencing, start with clean soil, raised beds, and whatnot, so.
Okay, so, I'm sorry, who's that?
Sally.
Yeah, very quickly, and then I really need to move the agenda.
Yep, I'm thinking of another area that has a gate that's restricted access. What about donating some of the land that's behind the gates at La Marina?
So the gate behind La Marina right now is an active marina. Right now, Hudson River Community Sailing has their open sails, and last summer they had their summer camps. It's also an active marina where boaters come in. So it's not, and it's open, for waterfront access. It's not necessarily let's take some of an active marina where we might need to bring boats onto the land or we're repairing a boat and put a community garden there.
Okay.
Court stipulations for the bankruptcy proceedings, no provision was made for a community garden at a marina.
Okay, and then I've
Sorry,
got,
can I ask a quick question? It's Danielle. This is regarding-
actually, I'm gonna let Natalie come in and Aisha come in because they haven't had a chance to speak yet. And then I'm gonna circle back to your resolution. Natalie?
So I just wanted to kind of put out, okay, I am unmuted now. I just wanted to kind of put out there, one of the spots mentioned by Jennifer was somewhere on the George Washington campus. And I just wanted to, as you know, there is a community group that has gotten access from the DOE for that gated area. And they have been doing a lot of the stewardship and the cleaning there so that if something were to happen in a green thumb way, we'd want to make sure that both groups collaborated.
Sure. I think the challenge is, will DOE allow it?
Yes, just indeed.
Okay,
Right.
so I think, and I'm getting a little ahead of myself, but when we get back to Danielle's reso, we can include that in there. I really want to get to Aisha, get to this dispatch with this item of business so that we can move the agenda. So if I sound abrupt, it's because I'm trying to get us out of here before, 9:30. Aisha.
Do you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I just wanted to know if any thought had been given to the possibility of using vertical farms that could be either outdoor or indoor. I've seen some really good work being done with that. Like for instance, in the Microsoft facility on 42nd Street, they have vertical farms on various floors throughout the facility that I honestly love going there to look at how things are moving along, growing, and how they're using those the things that the food that's actually produced there on site. So I just wanted to put that out there as an option.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, Aisha and Natalie. We're connected to the group that is working on the space behind George Washington High School campus. We've been part of their community coalition. So we definitely advocate for that space. We would be very involved. And we did try to work with Good Shepherd on the rooftop, but unfortunately the church rented the building, the space, and so the rooftop access was no longer going to be possible for the public. So that was very disheartening, but we were at the point of having a good contractor up to evaluate it. So yeah, we're just really, really hoping that the $200,000 that the community voted through in this project that was hoping, there was a community desire for 5 years ago.
Okay. All right. So in the interest of moving things along, I think that based not only on this conversation, but also the conversations that have burbled up for years around urban gardening, there's clearly an interest in urban gardening. There are any number of challenges to it, such as what Jennifer raised. I don't think we actually have to solve all of those, or frankly, even any of those right now. Anybody who's ever been to a meeting that I chair has heard me say that I think that group writing exercises are boring and tedious and I don't like them and I don't engage in them. But I'd like to try and get just by people's show of hands. I mean, of course, half the board members have smiling pictures of them on the screen. So you look like you're smiling. But I need to see your faces. So it sounds like there's broad consensus for supporting urban gardening, for putting forward a motion, calling on, the board and the Parks Department and the relevant community-based organizations, specifically Washington Heights, Inwood, Food Council, and possibly NYRP, other, maybe Anastasia and the Riverside Parks Conservancy, all the various parks-based organizations working together to identify possible areas for urban gardening, looping in Board of Education, the possible school site, looking at, whatever the sites may be, to try and do more of this, and including, if there are any buildings that lend themselves to vertical gardening. So does that kind of hit all the things?
I think we're also pulling in the Manhattan Borough President's office because she's
Clearly.
probably the most active.
Well, it would be going among other people to her. So yes.
And
this-
just obviously ADA access
Yes.
goes without saying.
And I would say, especially considering the fact that the 2 areas that the Food Council identified are not usable.
Right,
yeah,
so
to
you need
potential-
soil mitigation. There's a whole bunch that goes into this, but I think the next step, and again, I don't think we need to solve all the problems now, but I think passing a resolution saying, we really support this in theory, what do we do to have more of the conversation? So show of hands, so that was a show of hands of the committee. We've got Nobles, me, Sally, Danielle.
Count me, Liz.
Who was that?
Aisha.
Aisha, you were, I was just gonna ask. Is Alexis still on the call? I know she had to hop off for something. So no, is there anybody else on the committee?
Danielle.
Oh, I already got you.
Would it be wrong to include an item just because they mentioned issues with funding? Would it be wrong to also advocate for funding?
Oh yeah, that totally goes. I'm sorry, that's totally baked into the conversation. We're always, when we say that we support something and there's a price tag to it, there's either part of the resolved or be it further resolved is, and we call on the people with money in this to fund it. So yeah. I mean, 100%. So then we've got Sally. I will be drafting a resolution and sending it around. I will do my level best to give you more notice than the 12 hours I gave you on the last one, so that y'all can put in whatever are the things that I forgot, because I'm good, but I'm not that good. So I always forget something, and everybody helps me do even better work. I just want to get
One thing, Chair. I'm
read-
sorry to interrupt. Did you say it was 5 people or 6 people? Because I know
5
Daryl's
people.
on the call.
Oh, Daryl. Daryl, I think also had to go.
Okay.
Daryl going once, going twice. Yeah, Daryl and Alexis both let me know that they had conflicting Zooms and could not be on more than one at a time.
So I think we still have quorum. That's the only
we
thing
do
I'm
have,
checking on.
we do
Okay.
have quorum.
Okay,
There's
cool.
Yumi, Sally, Danielle, and Aisha. No to go.
Yep.
So next we've got Omar, Etta, Mariella, I think are the only other board members who are not committee members. How do you vote?
I vote yes. Anything that lessens our food desert, I'm all for it.
Great. Mariella,
Yes, I vote in favor.
Etta?
I vote in favor.
Fantastic. Thank you, everybody. All right. Thank you.
Hi, Liz. I'm sorry. Leo Jimenez is on as well.
Oh, my bad. Sorry, Leo. How do you vote?
Yes, I'm all for it.
Outstanding.
I also see a Steve. I don't know if that's Steve Simon.
No.
but- okay. Thanks.
It is not.
Cool.
He would be not voting due to conflict anyway.
Good point.
So, all right, with that, it is 8:07. I would like to bring in Elizabeth Masella. I'm sorry, we're running a little bit behind, and I just want to ask Inspector Harris to bear with us. We will be getting to you soon, and thank you so much for your patience and your continued presence, and to Officer Perez as well. So with that, we've got a presentation on proposed temporary art installation in Fort Tryon Park.
Hi, Elizabeth here.
There you are.
I can share my, it actually says I need screen sharing ability.
Oh, all right. Paola, are you still on the call?
If I get off the call, the webinar ends.
Oh, got it. So we holding you
Elizabeth
hostage.
Mandela.
All right, can you queue up Elizabeth to screen share?
Yes, let me find her.
Also, I don't know if you can see if the artist is here. His name is Zach Landsberg.
Oh.
If he's able to, if you can, if he's here and you can enable him.
Yes. There we go. Zach asked to there we go.
So should I try?
Yeah.
Great.
You should be able to share screen.
I've got it here. So I'm Elizabeth Masella. I'm the Senior Public Art Coordinator at NYC Parks. We've done quite a few projects in District 12, most recent of which is the Birds on Broadway, which got a little bit of an extended stay due to New York on pause. So they'll be there a little bit longer. There's one at Ilka Payan Park. But the project I'm here tonight to share with you is the winning proposal from the Claire Weiss Emerging Artist Award, which I believe Jennifer Hoppe shared with you when our open call went out. So the committee met and we selected Zach Landsberg's proposal, which I'll share with you in a moment. But first, just to share some background with you on the award. It's named for Claire Weiss, who was formerly a public art coordinator for NYC Parks, who sadly passed away in 2010. In her honor, her family and friends founded this award. We previously awarded it in 2011, 2012, 2013, 2014, and 15. One project in each borough. Each of those artists got $10,000 to create their proposed artwork. We did the same, we brought it back again 5 years later. So the open call, you may recall, was at the end of last year. We reviewed proposals earlier this year, shortly before everything changed in the world. Luckily, we are coming back into permitting public art again. But NOMA and the Fort Tryon Park Trust assisted in sharing the open call with Uptown artists at that time. The award was available to artists, an emerging artist that's not a student, an artist who's, had some experience, but they're not too extensive, not really having gallery representations. We want to give artists who are kind of starting out or in early stages of their career an opportunity to show their work outdoors. The location that was selected was in Fort Tryon Park, Linden Plaza. The park was selected because it was Claire's favorite park. She's lived uptown, so it's very important to her, and we're honoring her legacy by having the artwork there for this round. Here's a rendering. I'll get into some more details. It might look familiar to those of you who have been to the cloisters. The artwork is called The Tomb Effigy of Margaret Corbin. And we're looking at installing in October. It'll be on view for 1 year. Everything's very tentative right now. Hopefully we'll be permitting public art then. Of course, we won't know, but we would never force an artist to go out and install if it was unsafe. So right now that's our tentative plans. We're happy to let you know when it will actually be going into the park. So it may look like it's made out of stone, but it's actually made out of plywood, plaster resin, and exterior paint. I have the size here on the screen, as well as the weight. So basically it honors several different aspects of Fort Tryon Park, one being its Revolutionary War history, specifically the historical figure of Margaret Corbin, who also has quite a few namesakes in the park, as well as the Cloisters Museum. It's based on examples of French and Spanish tomb effigies, which are on display in the cloisters. But instead of using medieval motifs, Zach has put in kind of American motifs, coats of arms with stars and stripes instead of family heraldry, eagles instead of dogs or lions, giving her a shield and armor, but also a tricorner hat and Revolutionary War era gunnery tools. In addition to honoring kind of the local aspects, it also is taking a female historical figure and giving her some representation in the park. And just to give you some installation details, the sculpture will be cast off site and brought to the site in several pieces for assembly. It can be anchored to the asphalt or it can be weighted interior, so it doesn't need to be bolted down. As with other projects, the artists are required to restore the site to its original condition once it's done, so any holes in the pavement would be patched up. We have not yet determined where exactly in Linden Terrace it will go, just because we haven't had a site visit yet due to social distancing, but we will meet there to find a location that won't impede regular use of that area of the park, and in a place that, you know, gives both the park and the artwork justice. And I don't know if Zach wants to just share some information about the artwork and the inspiration, or about his work as an artist.
Yeah, I can do that. I mean, I think it's pretty summed up by the presentation, but there's another like additional detail that in the 1920s, the League of Women's Voters, or the Daughters of the Revolution, sorry, pushed to have Margaret Corbin recognized because she was the first woman to fight for the US military. And they located what they thought were her remains, and they interred them in West Point with a military kind of setup. Turns out they tested those bones and it's not her. That was a couple of years ago, I think in 2017. So this will kind of serve as like a kind of pseudo like serious memorial for that. But yeah, I am an emerging artist. Public art is my focus, and I specialize in site-specific installation work. And yeah, I particularly make pains to tailor my work to the site that it's in. So yeah, I'm happy to answer any questions if you have them.
I love this piece, and I'm blown away to learn that her remains, which were interred at West Point, are not her remains. That's a stunning bit of information. Do people have, I think if we can pull it up, yeah, Nobles?
Yeah, this is so awesome. I'm extremely excited. So my question was, you know, since it's going to be open to the public, I saw plaster as a piece of it. Will it be able to handle a load sitting on it?
Yeah, 100%. So the material is like a plaster resin. So it's a specialty product. It's plaster with like a kind of specialized resin to hold it really tight. So if you recast a gargoyle on the side of a building, that's what the stuff is made of. So it's very sturdy, and it's not, yeah, it's specifically exterior outdoor plaster.
Great.
And the box itself is going to be really heavily like overbuilt and reinforced. And so, yeah, the finish is going to be paint. And I think people will touch it, people will sit on it. And I think the wear and tear might actually help it, because
yeah,
it'll make it look more authentic, I think.
That's super cool. Thanks.
I love that. I just love that. Okay, we've got Daryl, who is back. I think I successfully promoted you.
I think all you did was unmute me.
Okay, well, we'll take it. I think you can turn on your video if you want. Did you have a question or you just needed to be unmuted?
For me?
Yeah,
Oh, no, it was just to be promoted to panelist.
got it. Okay, excellent. Were you by chance in the back for the conversation about the urban gardening?
No.
Okay, then I will not record your vote on that. But Richard Allman actually was here for that discussion and he votes yes. So if you could just note that, Nobles.
Noted.
Jennifer, do you don't need a resolution, Elizabeth, for this? This is just your
No.
thing?
It's just informational, since it is temporary.
Okay. Well, this is super exciting. I can't wait for it to be installed. I certainly hope that when we get to the commemorative Battle of Fort Washington in November, this is fully I hope that we're able to, I don't know, have public gatherings at that point, and that we're able to incorporate this wonderful piece of art into whatever is the observance of the Battle of Fort Washington, whether it's real or virtual. And Zach, I love this piece. It is site specific in the best possible way. I've never seen a lion in Fort Tryon Park, but I've seen eagles in the area. So this is great. This is just great.
And Liz, the plan is,
Yes.
Okay.
the plan, am I being heard? Yeah. The plan is to feature it as part of the Battle of Fort Washington. As you know, we hire a woman to channel or to be Margaret Corbin at that reenactment festival each year, and this will absolutely be incorporated into a tour. And we want the Fort Tryon Trust will invite Zach along with the Parks Department to give an artist talk and try to have some sort of reception so more people can hear sort of the backstory, the inspiration, also learn more about Claire, a pretty powerful woman in the arts world, who this award is named for, who was a Washington Heights resident.
Fantastic. Just fantastic. Thank you all so much for this just marvelous presentation.
We'll keep you posted on installation and if and when we're able to have a gathering in the park, that as well.
Super.
Great.
Thank you. All right. You're welcome to stay on for the call or to continue on with whatever else you might have had planned for a Tuesday evening. And with that, at 8:21, we move to Jennifer's 8:22. We move to Jennifer's Parks report. And I know that a lot of people had questions that they were throwing up into the chat, and just know that all of the panelists are able to monitor that, including Jennifer. So your questions have been read, and hopefully we will have some answers.
Sure.
Ms. Hoppe.
Okay, thank you so much, Liz and the committee for having me. I just want to say that we're glad that Fort Tryon and Inwood Hill Park have served as safe havens for peaceful and productive protests these past few weeks. I don't know if everybody on this call knows that local youth had a peaceful protest on Sunday in Fort Tryon Park, which is really wonderful, and lots of families and kids came, and the police were there, as well as the Parks Enforcement Patrol, as they had been last Sunday when the protests happened. So thank you, everyone, for making sure that that stayed a safe forum to express all of our upset about the injustices. And I'm glad everyone felt safe. Like those places were for everyone, you know, it's our second home. On some COVID updates, I just want to make sure that everyone on this call knows that the Parks Department has partnered with the Health and Hospitals Corporation. We have a testing center in the High Bridge Pool which is pretty phenomenal. It almost looks like an Arctic science center. It's worth going to look at just because of its physical traits. More importantly, though, it can test up to 1,000 people a day. Its hours are 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. And there's no out-of-pocket cost, no appointments needed. And that's at 2301 Amsterdam Avenue. I also wanted to give a shout out to the park staff. I'm not sure everybody on this call knows, but the Parks Department has been a part of 11 ongoing food distribution sites, and we've given out 27 million meals during this pandemic. So we're not only meeting people's spiritual needs, and gathering needs in the parks. We're providing for their well-being. Social distance updates. This may touch on one of Jennifer Bristol's comments. There are park ambassadors. There are Parks Department ambassadors. The NYPD has had ambassadors. Department of Environmental Protection has had ambassadors. There are also a new round of ambassadors that their main task is educating on social distancing and handing out masks. And their hours will be up until later in the evening. Jennifer, you had said you'd seen people giving out masks in the morning. The ambassadors I've worked with who have been assigned to Inwood, they've been there up till 6 p.m. We're hoping to have longer hours than that now with this new round of staffing. If you do see people not practicing safe social distancing, you can call 311. There's also a new app the city has if you're concerned, or just move to another area of the park if that's feasible. Facility closures. I know there was lots of expectation since the governor's phase 1 included tennis courts that the cities would. The city's phase 1 does not include tennis courts. And as of right now, sports field permits have been rescinded through August 31st. Special event permits have been put on hold through June. I expect with all of the recent mass gatherings, there's a desire to sort of wait and see if there's going to be another spike in cases. But the city is monitoring, its numbers, its staffing. There is no seasonal staff this upcoming budget cycle, and what can actually be sustained in terms of public safety. So the no barbecuing rule stays in effect at dog runs, playgrounds, tennis courts, basketball, and handballs are still closed. Again, like I said, more will probably become clear in the next 2 weeks post the number of large-scale gatherings.
Are we holding questions for the end, Chair? Sorry for asking. Are we holding questions for the end?
We're holding questions for the end unless there are quick clarifying questions to repeat something she's just said. Like you said that you rescinded ball field permits through July or August?
August 31st.
Got it, okay. But yeah, other general questions, let's wait till the end of her.
Okay.
Coyote update. The wildlife unit wants to make sure, and I made an announcement about this a few meetings ago. We have got eastern coyotes. They're living within Inwood Hill Park. 2 coyotes have been confirmed to be residing in that area. And the Wildlife Division of the Parks Department has no reason to believe they're unhealthy or pose a threat. That said, many people do get excited the first time they see a coyote. Most coyotes are not dangerous and they actively try to avoid people. There are some simple coexistence guidelines. I can send those flyers out to the community board and ask that they get circulated. Don't try to befriend a coyote or feed it because then you sort of confuse it. It becomes sort of habituated to people, but then there may be a trigger and sort of reverts back to its, other instincts, and then it might harm a person. So best to observe from a distance, do not feed them. Protect your pets. Always keep your pets on leash. And don't allow your pet to approach or play with a coyote. And keep coyotes wary. If you're approached by a coyote, make yourself look bigger than you are, waving your arms and making loud noises, and then you can continue on your way once the coyote retreats. So I'll send around this Coyote Smart in English y en español también. But we wanted to make sure everyone was aware that is happening. Some of the questions that came up in the feed about erosion on the pathways in Inwood Hill. We do currently have a suck truck for cleaning out drains. Sounds horrendous, but it's helpful. We also the Parks Department's Trails and Stewardship Division is leading plantings, closing desire lines to help with erosion. We also have had for 16 weeks a GAP training program, a young adult training program, helping us in the natural areas of Inwood Hill Park. They've been digging out the drainage swales along 2 miles of our 4 miles of marked hiking trail to help with that silt buildup, make it more navigable, and then to clear out drains for preventing erosion. The MTA also has a current contract to clean out outfields. You see lots of MTA work in Inwood Hill Park right now. There are 4 different projects. One of them is cleaning out the outfalls. You may know we get, unfortunately, runoff from the Henry Hudson Parkway Bridge. It's okay. It's okay. We have a budget cuts allowing. We've already programmed some state of good repair capital funding for pathways in Inwood, $800,000. So if that will advance, that will help with some of our more problematic pathway areas where we need to do more plantings, where we have drainage issues and surface issues. Because the water scours the paths. And as Jennifer Bristol mentioned earlier, what happened if we're trying to get sort of big potholes. Somebody mentioned the marsh regeneration area and the fencing. We're aware we have purchased fencing. Sorry. We've love you. We've purchased fencing. We're working with the Stewardship Division and Inwood Sprouts, a community group, as well as with our natural area volunteers and the Parks Department's natural areas group to come up with a comprehensive way to restore that marsh regeneration area. That's the marsh moving across the path, because formerly, as Allegra points out, formerly that was all water body. Gaelic Field was water body, and they changed the shipping canal. We're working on a plan for that, and it got put on hold for COVID, but it includes planting, new fencing, and interpretive signage, so more people understand that that's an asset and it's not an afterthought. I saw Simon and a few other people's comments about enforcement noise at Inwood Hill Park. I know we've got the inspector from the Parks Enforcement Division on this call, Asha Harris, who's hearing all and seeing all these comments. I will take them back as well. And I know we have Christian Perez from the 34th Precinct. NYPD gets all of your 311 calls, and that can help with when police deployment should happen. We can't be everywhere all at once. We have 660 acres, but having more pinpointed information helps us identify what the patterns are, so then we can deploy accordingly. The scooters are a much more difficult issue because they're motorized, they're hard to catch up to. So maybe Chris wants to answer that question later. I'm aware of the pathway condition at Dongamon. I just walked it yesterday for Sunday night. We'll put in work requests for those to be filled, as well as the new potholes that formed from the storm behind Ann Loftus. The quiet zone issues, it was determined that quiet zone does not hold up to legal challenge, not a real official designation. So what we can do is have enforcement speak to people. You're allowed to have low-level music. You're not allowed to have high-level music that affects everyone around you in the apartment buildings across the street. So that is certainly a problem we need to continue to work on. let's see. The level of enforcement. Yeah, like I said, 660 acres, so it is a challenge. And with the city's fiscal plight right now, the seasonal plan is not advancing. So we will not be getting that influx of staffing we usually get to handle sort of late spring, summer, early fall.
So I think that addressed most of the questions in the chat. I do see sort of two lingering questions. One is regarding the new green signs, the big signs that are mounted on wood. Can you just clarify, is no amplified sound one of the things that's on that new signage? That's a yes, no question.
Yes.
Excellent. And correct me if I'm wrong, there are new green signs at Isham Park, at the Isham Street entrance to Inwood Hill Park, at the 218th and Indian Road entrance to the park. They're kind of all over the place. So that regulation is in there. I'm going to consider that question asked and answered. And there's just multiple questions, some in the chat, some where my phone is exploding, and some from emails earlier. I myself do not have a dog. I have a stuffed dog. He does not need to go into a dog run, but I understand that a lot of people would like to see dog runs open and are not quite understanding what's the issue with social distancing, and is there not some way to have imposed some kind of social distancing requirements or maximum capacity, whatever. I'm kind of mystified as to what's the problem with reopening the dog runs, and I would love for you to explain it to me, understanding that this is not your personal decision, and even if you possibly disagree with the city policy, you may not be able to say that. So.
Well, to be truthful, I haven't been part of the discussions as to why they're closed. I know we've taken it to high levels of City Hall. I can find out what the rationale was behind them not reopening, but I think a big, question mark is how much can we actually monitor, right? If the goal is to protect lots of bunching up and close proximity, the closeness issue, how many different facilities do we have the capacity to do that at? So my expectation is that's one of the driving forces.
Okay.
But I'd have to go back and ask for sort of, is there like a policy paper on that? Because I haven't seen it.
All right, so in the interests of wanting to have a robust conversation about barbecuing and understanding that it's already 8:37, can all the committee members turn on your video? So here's the thing, I don't think that a resolution calling on the Parks Department to reopen the dog runs and to figure out how to do that safely is actually the best way to go, because that's a little too slow. A resolution would be, we would have to wait until the full board, and then the full board would pass it, and then it takes a couple of days to get it to in front of the commissioner. I am begging you in the strongest possible terms, and I think if I unmuted everybody, there would be raucous screaming and yelling in agreement. Show of hands, thumbs up, agreement, not agreement. I'm begging you to express to the borough commissioner and the commissioner that there is strong community feedback in support of reopening the dog runs and coming up with, some kind of parameter. And, that may involve some kind of self-policing component, some kind of honor system, some kind of admonition that, this is why we can or cannot have nice things, like you got to make sure you're not overcrowding or else we're going to have to shut down the dog runs again, something. because it's a problem. And it's becoming a problem in the non-dog run areas for people who don't have dogs, because people who do have dogs are kind of at their wits' end on what to do with their dogs.
Sure. And people are taking their dog off leash. And then that's,
Exactly.
you know.
And then we got Amy Cooper, and then we just like, can we please open up the dog runs, please, please?
I'll happily take that
That's
back.
not why we have Amy Cooper, but yeah.
I know.
Yeah, there we go.
I know. Okay, so unless there are super burning questions.
Question. My hand was raised.
Okay, quick 30-second questions, Danielle, Sally, and then Domingo.
I'm gonna try to make this as concise as possible, even though it's not a complex question and subject. This pertains to, Jennifer, what you said about enforcement. I guess there's not a lot of time to explain all of the nuances of this, but I'm just trying to understand, given the fact that there's been an increased presence of NYPD and Parks Police in the parks and just everything that's happening in the world right now. I'm just really trying to understand like how it's decided when Parks enforces something versus when NYPD enforces something, and if there's been like a decision made to increase it to by a certain percentage right now, because I'm noticing a lot of police in the park, namely Inwood Hill Park and the Dykeman Fields.
Could we maybe have Inspector Harris speak to that? And
can you hear me?
Yeah.
Can you hear me? I'm sorry.
A little louder, Inspector.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. First I'd like to apologize for you guys not being able to see me. I was having problems with my video earlier. So I just wanted to apologize to you all, and hopefully on the next call I will get to, or you guys will get to see me and meet me in person. In regards to your question, in regards to NYPD presence, I can't necessarily speak to why NYPD would put additional officers. As we know, there are protests that have been occurring, so that could be one reason for the increase of NYPD at the locations that you mentioned. In regards to Parks Enforcement Patrol, our peace officers have been put in areas where we may have received 311 complaints, or we may have gotten calls in regards to social distancing violations. So that would be a reason why you would see an increase in PEP officers at a particular location.
Thank you.
Thank you. Chris, you got anything to add to that?
Well, as we all know, we've had a few pop-up protests that have taken place in the park or vended in the park. So that's a reason for the increase in the police officers in the park. But we've also had an increase in 311 calls. And as you all know, as you've seen in the news, the department wants us to respond to those 311 calls within 45 minutes of the call. So a lot of the officers that we've had on hand have been dispatched to attend to those calls.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I see you, Nobles, but I had, who else? I had next Sally, then Domingo, and then Nobles.
Follow up to Danielle's question. What are the PEP hours and how many PEP peace officers are out there and at what times? Second, just a note that there are baseball games going on in Inwood Hill Park. And third, just a question following up from last meeting. Steve had said that with the Inwood Hill Park Nature Center, that y'all were trying to get that declared essential construction. And I wondered what the status of that was.
I'll answer that first. It was not deemed essential. We advocated for it to be, but it was not. But that doesn't mean it won't be released soon. It's just that they're phasing when construction projects can come back online.
Okay. No, it's not good for your heart.
If I could just add, construction on many of our projects began yesterday, and we're expecting in the very near future to have many of them back in construction. With the Inwood Nature Center, the issue there is when it will actually start. We'll check into that and get back to you.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank you, Steve. Next, we've got Domingo.
PEP officers.
Oh, I'm sorry, yes. How many PEP officers do we have, Inspector Harris?
In the north, we have a contingent. I don't have an exact number at this time. We have a few employees that have been out due to COVID, but we do have a contingency in a north base command with a sergeant and officers assigned. So I can get you the up-to-date numbers in regards to staffing. But again, we've had a few employees that have been out due to COVID.
Okay, and their hours?
We have coverage in the borough from around 7 a.m. to 11:30 p.m. on any given day, but that's full borough coverage. So if, let's say, you did place in a call and we had a unit available, we could send that unit to the sector, even if the sector didn't have coverage.
Great, thank you. Domingo.
Yeah, my question was for Jennifer. It was regarding potential, because my concern is as somebody who works with about 500 kids in the summer, right? What are like the parks department has to, and I thank God Steve is here. Like, you have to take ownership of what are these kids gonna do? Chill outside in a block? You know, like there has to be something that work together with the nonprofits, figure something out. But these parks have to be open to be able to provide services to these kids. Like, you can't just automatically assume that they're just gonna stay home. It's not gonna happen, you know? And to Sally's point, thank God they're playing baseball in the park and not in front of your building and breaking windows.
I think, Domingo, it isn't just the Parks Department's decision. I think the city is conferring with the Department of Health, DYCDS, and multiple other agencies on when things open and how soon, and how do we protect, how do we protect the public? Close contact seems to be, close contact seems to be something that results in, increases the likelihood of like COVID transmission. So I think that's the concern. And then crowds.
But if the goal is to protect people getting the shit beat out of them by cops. So who are we protecting them from?
Right now, we're talking right now about COVID and the need to protect people from that. So you asked, what is the Parks Department doing? I'm just letting you know, we don't make that decision in a vacuum. It's something that we're doing with multiple other city agencies based on health data, the metrics that the mayor has established for where we are in dealing with the pandemic.
Okay. I'm gonna let Nobles, let Nobles have the last word. And then we really have to move the agenda because we've got a whole other agenda item that
I can save you time. I withdraw it.
Okay.
Liz, if I could take that, because I don't know if I heard the answer to the question I texted you. Was that addressed? I didn't hear that.
I'm sorry, what was your?
In relation to our permits back in effect so that people can have events in the park, are there minimum or maximum gathering size? If people wanted to have, for instance, like small children's birthday or some type of socially distanced sports activities, are they able to do that?
Earlier in the meeting, I don't know if you heard this, sports and court permits, field and court permits have been rescinded through the end of August. Group play is not currently allowed. Individual play, family play is fine. In terms of special event permits, right now the system has been closed down through June 30th. And we haven't gotten direction yet on when the citywide event management system is going to reopen. When we do, I can send that out to the community board so you get help us get the word out to people. I think one thing to keep in mind is also like, is there going to be a resurgence? It was expected that would happen in the fall. So is there a window before then where it's safe, for people to gather en masse?
Okay. Thank you. Inspector Harris, I just want to point out there's a lot of chat going on about a current condition as we speak with respect to a lot of amplified sound up in Inwood Hill Park. So if you have the ability to communicate with some of your other officers, some of your officers who may be on the ground, it would be fantastic if you could pay some attention to that particular situation. I can't speak to it myself because that's a mile away, but that would be, we have an unusual opportunity that there are people complaining and here you are. So we can make you directly aware of that to possibly deal with that.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Okay, it is now 8:49. And I apologize that we are not going to have nearly as much time to talk about barbecuing, which I have to say is technically grilling. It's not barbecuing. We can have a culinary discussion at some other time, but regarding the regulations and the placement of barbecuing or grilling facilities, where it is and is not allowed, what the regs are, and some issues around, you know, noise, sanitation, trash pickup. There's a whole fire safety component. I will say there's a sound argument, I think, and this is based, I'm giving this preamble not based on my opinion. I'm trying to concisely summarize some of the feedback that I've gotten in the time period since we threw this out as an agenda item. There are people who really like grilling because it's an opportunity to get together with friends and family. There are people who really don't like it because it attracts large crowds. Sometimes people do a really good job cleaning up after themselves. Sometimes they don't. Oftentimes people clean up after themselves and raccoons come and totally destroy trash. So even though people did a good job of cleaning up, you wouldn't know that because animals have come and had a field day. There are a number of environmental concerns, given that we do not allow smoking of cigarettes or cigars in parks. Why would we allow fuel barbecuing that's arguably much dirtier than either cigarette or cigar smoke? There are a number of issues around equity and who's afraid of whom. That has nothing to do with grilling and everything to do with why people are demonstrating in the streets. And there's also this whole issue of permitting not happening because of COVID, but clearly people are gathering together in large groups anyway, and what are sort of the desired or not desired enforcement issues around that as it relates to both noise, sanitation, and social equity. So it would be helpful if we could just get a quick clarification from Jennifer as to where are the areas where barbecuing is actually permissible. There have been some specific questions in the chat and through email about why there is barbecuing on the peninsula in Inwood Hill Park as opposed to the Dykeman Fields, which is also part of Inwood Hill Park. And then when you can clarify what the permissible areas are, I'm gonna open it up for Q&A. And I'll be taking stacks, writing down the raised hands in the order that I see them.
So the Parks Department has built-in barbecue grills at the Sherman Creek Street End Park at 203rd Street on the Harlem River. We have the Inwood Peninsula at Inwood Hill Park where you enter at 218 and Indian Road. And that's a pretty expansive area. It's almost the entire peninsula absent the Nature Center and Ballfield 6. And then at Dykeman Fields, we allow barbecuing at the picnic area, sort of midpoint in that 18 block section, as well as at the southern end. somebody asked the question about why we don't do away with the peninsula for barbecuing. It's because there's a high demand for barbecuing. Several years ago, before we had that designated area, there was barbecuing everywhere. It was really difficult to manage. And so instead of, trying to stop people from doing what they clearly was a priority, we created a designated area that took the burden off the adjacent residents on Indian Road and 214th Street. It also helped protect the 143 acre forest.
Sorry, can you lean into we're having some weird, it's hard to hear. There's a.
Can you hear me now?
It's a little choppy.
I wonder if it's my internet connection.
I think so.
Can you log back in?
Okay, so I'm gonna log out and log in.
Really bad.
Yeah, that's maybe not a terrible idea. And I guess, yeah. Steve, if you could take over.
Well, I just want to add that there is an area in Fort Washington Park, which is not under Jennifer's jurisdiction, where we allow barbecuing north of 155th Street, going up towards the soccer and baseball fields, going up towards the Discovery Playground. So it's an area that stretches for, maybe 7 or 8 blocks along the river.
It says on the site north of 158th.
Excuse me?
It says on your website north of 158th.
Right.
Okay. All right, north of 158.
And is there anything in Highbridge?
But there's also barbecuing south of 155th Street.
Okay, is there anything in Highbridge?
I'm not sure. Let's wait for Jennifer to get back.
Okay.
I'm not sure that there is.
Okay. I'd like to start going through some of the raised hands. I see several of the committee members, but I'm actually gonna jump in and allow some of the public members to ask questions first, since they haven't really had the opportunity to do that. So we've got Lauren Elmore.
Hi. I am an Inwood member. I'm the president of InWolf, the 401c3 that runs the Homer's Dog Run in Inwood Hill Park. I guess my question is connected to something Jennifer said. Unfortunately, she's not here right now. With the barbecuing, and she said the budget cutbacks, I wasn't quite clear on what that meant for the spring, summer, and fall. I walk my dog 3 times a day in that park because I live a block away. And on Mondays, it's basically it's a trash pit, and they're congregated around the limited small trash cans, but it's a trash pit every Monday. And so if what I was hearing Jennifer say is true, is she saying that there won't be people to clean that up in a timely fashion through the summer of 2020? And what the park will look like. I have seen a huge increase in the number of people using the park. People who bring full backpacks thinking the woods is literally a full woods, and I'm like, it's not that deep, people. You'll find your way.
I did not understand her comments to be that, I understood her comments that the seasonal staff, which is like the playground associates, that those are the ones that have been cut, not the other staff, but Steve can address that.
No, the seasonal staff.
Hold on, Steve. I just want to, for people who do not know this, in addition to being a member of Community Board 12, Steve is also works for the Manhattan Borough Commissioner. So he is quite competent to answer these questions.
Great.
Well, my title is Manhattan Chief of Staff. And by the way, at Highbridge Park, we have a barbecue area at 177th Street. The seasonal staff, to a great extent, does include maintenance staff that we rely upon to take care of of many of our parks during the summer. So the loss of our seasonal staff will definitely have impact on our ability to maintain parks. I mean, that's where we stand at the moment.
So, okay, so I'm connecting the increase in the use of the parks, the increase in people barbecuing. I know it says you're not supposed to barbecue, but people are. And the fact that there won't be people. I'm used to saying hello to all the people on Monday mornings who come and pick up the trash that sort of gets scattered. We're not going to see that this summer. Is that what you all are saying?
No, I'm saying we're not going to see as many people as we've had in past summers. We're not going to be completely bereft of staff, but we are going to be at a significantly reduced level.
Okay, so with that said, all of these things are conflated. I think you all realize this. It's really important that we find some answers regarding reopening the parks. A lot of people cook things that are actually deadly to dogs, not just dangerous or annoying, but deadly. So right now, all we have are the general areas where everyone else is and the woods. And if we don't have the run, which is a sacred space for the dogs, I'm really scared, especially if there's going to be a decrease in the amount of people cleaning. I'm really scared that there is going to be that our pets, that our family members are gonna suffer the consequences of this. So
Okay.
that's all I
Thank
wanted
you.
to say.
But no, point extremely, extremely well made. And thank you. And thank you for your patience because it's been a long meeting. Okay. Jen Bristol, do you have
Just back to
something
the
to add
dog
on top
run,
of that?
Yeah, just the only thing with the dog run is, and I'm sure Lauren can, I mean, we have a bigger dog run, obviously we're lucky, but my concern, or what really needs to be addressed, is that dog runs for the last 20 something years are self-policed. That you have to use peer pressure, you have to speak up.
Yeah,
if
we
someone
actually,
comes in.
at the risk, I don't mean
I know,
to
but
cut
I
you
just
off,
want
but
to
we
know
can
that
all
it's
see
very
that comment in the
serious.
chat.
Because I know, there needs to be some monitoring stuff. We want it open, but there needs to be something because people will just, I mean, the park is just, there are no rules in the park anymore. And no one's going to listen unless there's really monitoring. And it's,
Okay, I
know, goodbye. That's it. I just want
right. And I'm really trying to focus this conversation on barbecuing.
I know,
think we had a pretty strong conversation about the dog runs.
Well,
and
I
I'm
wasn't
beg-
able to speak, Liz, during that. I kept saying, can I speak? Can I speak? I'm a dog owner. I'm the only dog owner. Like I kept saying that in the chat. That's why I got frustrated. No one called on me.
Yep.
And so that's why I
Got
did.
it.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Okay. Joseph Kleeman, are you still on the call? I'm looking, Joseph Kleeman going once. There we go. No. Joe,
Yeah, can you hear me? Sorry,
yeah, sorry.
I had my thing muted. Thanks, my name is Joe. I live by Inwood Hill Park, and it's the first community board meeting I've been to in years. And I came tonight because I saw that flyer, and my heart really sank when I saw the flyer because I thought it was pretty unwelcoming. I know I see the peninsula from my window, and there's lots to there's an impact on quality of life when there's a lot of people barbecuing in the park. But I just think there are things we should keep in mind, those of us who are lucky enough to live on or near the parks. It's a public park, and the people own it, and the people have a right to enjoy it. And I think right now, with coronavirus, a lot of people are cooped up in the city with nowhere to go for fresh air or relaxation. Some of those people love barbecuing, and we should make sure there's room for them in the park. 2, I think at this exact moment, all of us really need to understand that the public spaces in this country belong to everyone in this country, and everyone should feel welcome in them. Everyone should be able to enjoy the public spaces without fear of getting a cold shoulder or harassment or worse. So I understand that there are quality of life issues, but I wanted to come here tonight as a member of the community, as someone who lives near the park, on the park, with a view of the park, and to say that from my perspective, the park belongs to all of us. A lot of people love barbecuing in the park with their friends and family, and we have to support one another. And if it were on the table, I would support an expansion of the barbecue area. And that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you. I appreciate your comments. Next up, we've got Hilda.
Yes, hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Hilda, and I am a resident of Inwood, and I'm half a block from Inwood Hill Park. I've lived in this community 40 years, and I am extremely concerned and against extending the barbecuing in Inwood Hill Park, primarily because they are using the peninsula now for barbecuing. And that area during the summer months is left in shambles. There's garbage, live charcoal, the loud music. And what happens is that it invites people come in with their cars and they double park and they block traffic. Just this evening, I walked my dog and they were blocking traffic and the police were out there handing out tickets and the garbage truck could not get through. Some years ago, this situation happened and an ambulance couldn't get through, coming for a man who had suffered a heart attack. They had to get out of the ambulance and run down the hill to treat him. So this is a really, really big concern of mine. And this goes on every summer. I dread it because the park is, for the most part, people do respect the park and we love the park. And it is a public park for everyone to enjoy. However, there are park goers who do not have the same sentiment and could care less about that park, and they are destroying it. Every summer we go through this, and I am completely against extending any barbecuing in that park. That's a
Okay.
natural
I
park and it's a beautiful
I hear
park.
that, and I just want to make extremely clear that which you may have missed at the beginning of the meeting, at no point was there ever a plan specifically to expand barbecuing in Inwood Hill Park.
The
At no-
barbecuing,
Ma'am?
no, I heard that at the beginning.
Okay, so I just want to be really clear about that. This is the board, this is not the community board of Inwood Hill Park. This is the community board of Community Board 12, which goes from 155th Street all the way up through and past Inwood Hill Park. So I hear you loud and clear. I'm gonna move to the next speaker, which is Catherine Levin.
Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Kathy. And I'm a co-founder of the Inwood Hill Park Conservancy with Adam Martinick. And I think that the community is, because of COVID, it's really important that, I mean, people have brought up about barbecuing, about having things to do. And I think that part of the culture of our lives is changing. And so much of it is an opportunity for us to make changes in a positive way. So if it is possible to bring plantings in, if it is possible, I mean, I certainly will help organize trash collections, you know, for early Monday morning or things like that, even though we're not supposed to gather, what have you. Because I think as a community, Inwood is very special. And we want to see our nature. We want to see the forest and the wetlands preserved. And that's part of our mission. So anything that we can do to improve this, you know, glorious wildlife is important to us. And I'm willing to work with all kinds of people in helping that out. So, I mean,
Thank you.
barbecuing is not really
Right.
on the forefront of that, but I understand people's needs for it. But if we can help contain it, clean it up, keep it, away from the animals, all that is important.
Thank you. Peter Skowinski. Peter? Peter Skowinski, going once, going twice.
Yes.
Excellent.
Look, I live in Inwood, around Columbia Stadium area, and I'm working from home right now. And I've been working from home for the past 3 months. I love going to the parks. And lately, what I've seen is, unfortunately, a situation where every Monday, when I am actually going to the park, I see a lot of garbage strewn around. I see the garbage being flown into the river, into the peninsula. And there's actually one parks person that manually collects all that stuff into a garbage bag, which is great. But then that's on a Monday morning. Then I'm actually seeing on a Tuesday morning, the garbage mostly has been collected, but then there's holes because there was no garbage pickup, right? So we're back to square one, where the garbage that has been collected is now strewn around because of the rodents, the squirrels, the rats, whatever it is. And look, barbecuing, grilling, I love it, but at the same time, I do find that there's not enough resources to accommodate that. So what I would like to do is I would like to have more resources in the park to be able to actually clean up the park so that we don't have garbage ending up in birds' bellies. We don't see garbage being thrown to the river because of the wind. Most people are trying to actually clean up after themselves. There's just not enough garbage cans, right? Can't we have like several containers, perhaps, that people can actually physically put their garbage in? As I said, people want to clean the park. There's not enough resources for them to do so.
Do you want a response, Liz, or?
Yes.
So
if you could respond to that, yes,
Sure.
please. There's also been a question for Inspector Harris to just give some information about the names of who were the personnel assigned up here, and if she can provide her contact information here would be great, and also to the 34th precinct.
So just on the trash issue, we did just put out several more trash cans because people had wrote about the prior weekend where people do try to put their trash away, but there aren't enough cans to contain it all. So they're putting it next to it. And then, as you mentioned, the raccoons, we've got abundant wildlife, skunks get into it and spread it. So we have added more cans to that end. And we're working on a trash management plan because we only have so many people who are qualified to drive the garbage truck, and takes time once it's full to drop it off at the sanitation dump. We're trying to see where can we sort of save time so the garbage can operate with higher level of frequency.
Okay, thank you. Inspector Harris?
I'm done.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
The question is, can you provide the names of the staff, the PEP staff who are up here, who are assigned up here, and can you provide your contact information, and also make sure to provide your contact information to the precinct if they don't already have it. One of our public members is also an officer in the 34th Precinct Community Council and would like your contact information.
Okay, so we have Sergeant Barreto and Sergeant Rivera that's in Manhattan North. My name is Asha Harris, ASHA Harris. And my contact number is 212-360-1433. That's the office number. And then my work cell phone number is 646-660-5704.
Excellent. Thank you very much. I also,
Liz, could I just mention?
Yes.
We have a, if people think that they should just reach out directly to the inspector whenever there's a problem, we have a 24/7 communications number, which may actually provide a more rapid response in certain situations, depending upon the hour of the day. And people may want to make note of that number, which is 646-613-1200.
and that's a 24-hour number for PEP?
That's a 24-hour number to reach anybody in the Parks Department, including PEP.
Okay, if you could do me a favor, Nobles, and I think it's really appropriate to include that number.
Yep, I just
and-
did.
Yeah, but maybe not necessarily Inspector Harris's work cell number.
And I did not.
That's outstanding. Before I go to the next speaker, I
One
just want
clarification, just for some people who are new. When there's an emergency, you don't want to necessarily call PEP. If it's an emergency, if there's a crime, if you're feeling threatened, if there's someone who seems emotionally disturbed, or there's a fire, you call 911.
Yes, very
Park
good.
enforcement
Yes.
is peace,
Yes.
quality of life issues. So I
this
know
entire
not everybody-
conversation has been pretty much around like noise and trash. So I feel comfortable moving on. I do, before I take the next speaker though, there's been a lot of back and forth in the chat. I just want to have, not as a discussion point, but as a statement followed by a request. I had recently seen the new green signage at Indian Road and 218th Street. There are a number of people in the chat who are saying it's not there. So if, I know that part of the advantage of the new signage is it can be fabricated in-house and easily replaced if it needs to be replaced. So if you can, you know, have a maintenance detail, just check the perimeter of the park and make sure that the signage that's supposed to be there is there. I can tell you there is no signage in my den, and that's the only thing that I can say for sure. I certainly didn't mean to suggest to people that I knew something that they didn't, or to doubt the veracity of what people who live on Indian Road were asserting. So if you could just make sure that the signage that's supposed to be there is there, that would be fantastic.
Absolutely.
And with that, I would really like to conclude the discussion with respect to signage. So we've got on the committee, Danielle, and then Domingo and Sally.
Should I go ahead?
Yes.
Okay, so I have a bunch of points that I want to make, so bear with me. The first thing I want to say is, because we didn't really address why this discussion or how it was born, why we decided to add it to the agenda. And so I had proposed it at the last meeting because I've observed over several years that the barbecue areas tend to become very crowded and that there's a need, right? So I think that if there's a community need, especially given that we're in a time of COVID when we should be social distancing, and granted, the barbecuing areas aren't yet open, but we're going to be moving in that direction. And so I guess my thought process was, okay, so there are a lot of people barbecuing, and when we return to barbecuing and the parks being, you know, usable, we're going to want to have the opportunity, or people, you know, are going to need the opportunity to social distance while they barbecue. So I think that's the first thing that I want to say. The next thing I want to say is somebody made the point about quality of life. And I think it's important to understand that parks are multi-purpose, multi-use. Somebody made a point about the forefront of people's needs and how barbecuing is not at the forefront of people's needs, I think that's sort of subjective. I think some folks like to enjoy the marshes, some folks like to walk their dogs, some folks like to use the dog run, and some folks like to barbecue. And perhaps, you know, the folks that barbecue are not the folks that own their dogs and that observe that enjoy the marsh. And I think it's just important to be mindful of that. And so I don't necessarily support expanding any one particular area. I do think it would be nice to expand to the along the Hudson, along the Harlem River Drive, like where that sort of enters. There's like a portion, I don't know what that is called, but I think I've observed people barbecuing there, and I think that going back to what people have said about resources and trash, I think that another thought that I had in raising this is that if we do officially expand these areas, then it would allow us to argue for additional resources, park staff and trash receptacles and things of that nature if it's officially designated. So I understand that people are very concerned about trash, and perhaps we can talk about ways to address that, like, you know, the receptacles. Maybe we would want to shut it down for a portion of the day, and, you know, volunteers can, you know, help collect trash, like the park staff can, you know, pick it up on a Monday morning. Maybe it will be closed for a certain time frame. I don't know. I guess my hope was to bring this up, to add it to the agenda, and then have us all as a community kind of come together and discuss what our feelings are, so that people can enjoy the barbecuing areas, because it tends to be very crowded. And yeah, that's all I have to say. Thanks.
Thank you. I apologize. I would like to ask, I know that I identified a number of committee members to speak, but I forgot, I overlooked Allegra Legrand, who was in the queue. And so I'm gonna unmute her, and then we'll circle back to the rest of the committee members. And then I would like to bring this meeting to a close by 9:30. Allegra, so if you could just be brief.
Thank you, Liz. I appreciate the opportunity to voice my opinion. Inwood Hill Park is a respite and a community asset for an uptown community that has very little community assets available to it. We do not have the adequate parks facilities and the infrastructure to police and to maintain the level of usage that barbecue usage entails. We do not have the facilities or parks personnel to maintain a clean parks place for people who live in the community to enjoy their park, when there are others who use the park to do barbecuing. They use the park to do scootering. They use the park to do broadcasting. They use the park to do partying. And we don't have the level of infrastructure to not only control for policing and by policing, I don't mean enforcement, I just mean cleaning up and maintaining facilities for the level of usage. We have more people using the park today than we had a year ago today. We have more people who are using the park because they cannot go to work. They are unable to enjoy the rest of their life. They're unable to go to other places. And we actually have increased demand for parks maintenance. But parks maintenance has stayed pretty much the same as what it was a year ago. We have people who are just going about their daily lives. They're trying to social distance. They're trying to work from home. They're trying to maintain their lives through this crisis, and yet we have an increased amount of parks usage. We don't have increased trash pickups. We have a solitary parks person who has the patience of Job, that she goes out into the parks each morning with this positive attitude, picking up this monumental amount of trash.
I need, in the interest of time, I really need you to get to the point.
Until Parks designates additional dollars for standard maintenance of trash pickups, of additional not just trash cans. Trash cans have a finite volume, 50 gallons, which is insufficient to deal with the amount of trash that's generated daily. I think the trash that's generated daily, based on my observation of 4 to 5 black 50-gallon trash bags next to each park's trash bin, is only 20 to 25% of the actual usage required for parks. Parks has to provide additional dumpster pickups. It needs to provide additional personnel. It needs people who will, not just a single person who has this monumental job. We need more people who are available in the parks to maintain the parks, to clean up the parks, because our community, we may not be the wealthiest community who lives in zip code 124, who can afford to have a Central Park Conservancy who has the number of garbage pickups, the trash pickups to maintain our community. But people in Inwood and people in Washington Heights, we didn't leave New York City because of COVID. We stayed here. We may not have been able to go to work, but we stayed in our community. We work from home, and we love this community, but we have our parks system, and we need New York City to invest in the people who actually stayed in New York City. And it's not just about the trash pickups. There are other capital improvement projects which are not generally maintained in parks, which, because of the enhanced usage of parks facilities, have become more apparent. There are potholes that are 4 to 5 feet deep that exist in regular open pasture areas, green areas. I mean,
Allegra, I'm sorry to do this, but you've had now 6 minutes, and so we really need to move on to other speakers.
But in Wood Hill Park, we need to have a base level of maintenance for the enhanced usage that we are experiencing during this stay-at-home remote learning, remote
Thank you. Allegra, I need to move on to other speakers. Domingo.
So yeah, so I feel like we have people. Yes, correct. Yes, and now I understand that one of the main issues that I see here is that we actually come to a collective understanding that there is a need for resources. So what I would like to ask Jennifer is, understanding that there's a need for resources in certain particular areas to be able to accommodate, and thank God the Chief of Staff for Manhattan is here. What could be done because I know it's about, like, for instance, for us in the park, we had an overwhelming amount of people come to our basketball games. So we bought extra receptacles during the summer to be able to create a system where the park isn't trashed after we're done, right? But how is it possible? How can ordinary people come together if we purchase the garbage cans? Is Parks going to be able to pick up the garbage? That's my question for Steve and for Jennifer. Okay. And I think what this also raises, the question around resources, is if you are so, if it's a calling for you to bring more resources uptown, then I encourage everybody here who feels that way to join the Defund the NYPD movement, and let's use some of those resources to be reallocated to the parks, and we could use that because it seems like there's a need. And
Amen.
third, for the neighborhood Karens, right? It is now illegal to falsely call the cops on individuals. So that's one thing. And the other thing is, hopefully, it will also be extended to 311 calls. So I encourage people to be very, very, very to take it into consideration, because now you can actually face criminal charges of falsely calling the police on individuals. Thank you.
So something to keep in
Hello?
mind is budget cuts due to COVID. Parks Department doesn't set its own budget. I just want everybody to understand that. The city council and the mayor negotiate for the budgets for each city agency. So
I think it's pretty clear that we
to advocate for more funding for parks. And someone mentioned earlier, the New Yorkers for Parks is working with a lot of park friends groups, calling on the council to ensure that at least 47 million of the 60+ million that's being cut from the Parks Department's budget gets reinstated, so we can bring back 340 park workers. That's New Yorkers for Parks.
Yeah. Okay, so it's now 9:29. We're 30 minutes over. I don't want to tell people who have their hands raised that they can't speak. So I'm going to call on the next half a dozen speakers. Everybody's going to have 1 minute, not more. I'm going to change up the order because there are some people who haven't had the opportunity to speak yet that I will call on before people who have had the opportunity to speak. So Daryl.
Thank you. I wasn't expecting that right now, but thanks. Just actually a couple questions, and I don't know if Steve's still on the call, but you know, obviously there's a problem with the trash after grilling, you know, on the weekends. Are other parks having the same issue? And if so, what's being done there?
Well, we have barbecuing issues in a number of parks. I wouldn't say that it's unique to Inwood Hill Park. We've had similar issues in the past at Morningside Park, for instance. You know, where we get you know, heavy barbecue usage. So you know, what we've tried to do is to put on later shifts in order to try to clean the park and to try to get people to leave at an earlier hour so they don't linger into the night. But again, it's a staffing issue, and until we see how this new budget shakes out, I don't know. You know, I don't know that we're going to really have a good sense of where we stand. And as Jennifer pointed out, you know, we did in the FY20 budget, with the help of New Yorkers for Parks and the City Council, we did get a significant increase in staffing through what was called the Fair Play campaign. And we are hoping that the positions that were added in FY20, that we could, those are permanent year-round positions, that not the seasonal ones. We're hoping that we could at least hold on to those. So to the extent that people may want to lobby council members in support of refunding our Fair Play lines, that might be a step that you could take.
Play
Okay.
fair.
Thank
And
you.
then
Next, we've got.
The last part of my question, sorry, just people have been talking about, you know, noise and then the issues, you know, of grilling and whatnot. I'm curious what is being said. I know you're getting signage. A lot of people say that's not enough. But what can be done? How can we help people interact with other people to express their concerns? Say, that's bothersome, that's too loud, and, you know, something.
Okay.
The intergroup relations in this has not been part of the discussion.
I will say that, you know, between the chat, the texts, and the emails, one of the messages I've gotten from a member of the public is the message from all over the city, particularly in parks, needs to be that users have to do their part because COVID has totally destroyed the overall budget. So, you know, yeah. So I'm just going to leave that one there. Jenny Boone.
Yes, hello. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you for calling on me. I'm going to keep it brief. Basically, it seems to me the issues are trash and noise. What solutions that I have to offer, and I don't know if it's possible, I would love to see large dumpsters with tops that close, because I think what's happening, the smaller bins are getting overloaded, trash blows out, and animals in the night get it and move it. So I would like to see that by the athletic field, the baseball field, the peninsula, and the Indian Road entrance. And that can also decrease how often parks need to empty. Rather than going to a ton of little trash cans, they can go to a couple big dumpsters. With the noise, I would like to see some signage in the lawn, like little lawn signs temporarily, to let people know that might be more visible to where the noise is coming from. And then I would love to see something organized like community service hours to students that might be able to volunteer in the parks to pick up trash, and volunteer that way, something for their resume, something I'm sure lots of schools require hours, something that can be organized to help alleviate some of the effort on the Parks Department for picking up the trash. That's all.
Thank you. Jennifer, can you address, I know that earlier it was stated that volunteer days are curtailed because of COVID. I can say that the Parks Department has a very robust volunteer program. I would like to suggest that, given that we've just heard that SYEP has been back to being funded, perhaps it's, I have no idea how parks can possibly incorporate that. And if you could address the issue of trash dumpsters, if that's a possibility to
Or
install.
one thing about trash dumpsters is you have to have a certain type of vehicle that can then go into the dumpster and lift it. It's not a vehicle that we necessarily have in our district. So in terms of operations, it does complicate things. It is something that we were able to do in the past, but now given certain availability of like heavy duty vehicles, it's not something that we can currently do, but we can revisit that for sure. Containers. We do have a very big volunteer program. We'll happily expand that. I saw Renee Cuenca from Partnerships for Parks on the call earlier. If you have a project, a discrete project, you have a group that you want to bring together, you can go to your outreach coordinator. We can line up the tools and we can get you started on a regular basis volunteering in the park. And we can look into SYEP, but that's also a budget issue.
Got it. Not to put you on the spot, Renee, but if you could do me a favor and just shout out your contact information so that people who do want to form volunteer groups can do the preparatory work with you, so that once that's a permissible activity, people can be primed for that. And then
Absolutely. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, I'm Renee. I'm an outreach coordinator with the Parks Department. Our organization is called Partnerships for Parks. So you're all welcome to go online and look it up. But you're welcome to email me, like Jennifer said. Anybody who would like to volunteer, once it all goes back to normal a little bit, I'm happy always to help community members come out and support their local parks. So not only through cleanups, but any type of activity to bring community together. That's kind of like our goal. So email me. My email is Renee, RENE .Cuenca, CUENCA @parks.nyc.gov, and I can help you connect with any type of activity happening. So
Thank you very much. Okay, next.
If you want to volunteer in the stewardship in the forest, we have set days for that. We have training for that. Yep. You can contact me.
Thank you.
Jennifer Papa at parks.nyc.gov.
Thank you. Jenny Boone.
Yeah, you already called on me.
Oh, right. Yes, I was gonna say, I think I already called you. Sixto Medina. Sixto, can you unmute yourself?
Yes, can you hear me?
Can you speak up a little?
Yes, hi.
Much better.
Okay, right. So this is a very enriching discussion. My problem is that most of the things that has been discussed tonight has been being discussed for the last 22 years that I live and work in Indian Road. I patrol Indian Road Avenue from end to end every day. I walk on the park, I walk on my dog, I see everything that's going on. And the same thing that is going on today is exactly what's been going on for 20 years, for the time that I live here. I know that Homer Kennedy, who live in my building and upstairs, he was engaged in this battle to deal with the park situation. And I know all the protagonists, all the individual involved in this thing. This is a problem that's been going on for years. And so we use the excuse of budget cuts. When we had the money, we didn't do the job then. So now we don't have the money because of COVID. So we have a very good excuse not to do what we're supposed to do originally. So my point is, this is nothing new what's going on. We have a clash of culture over here. That's the other thing that some of you don't understand. You got people who come from Jersey, from Connecticut, that are invited from our neighbors to come here. And you have all kinds of people merging into this park because this is a beautiful park. I know that because I am Dominican. I live in this community for 54 years in Washington Heights and in Inwood. So I know all these people. I know what's going on. Some of you don't understand what's going on. I mingle. I have friends. I have families in this community. So the issue here is, aside from what's already been said, that what is a very good point about the garbage and about creating a system. If you create a corporation, I worked for General Motors for 30 years. There was a system to build cars a minute. Every minute we built one car in General Motors up in Tarrytown. So there was a system in place that had no failure. There was no space or time for failure. We didn't lose a minute. So my point is, if we really want the park to be part of this of us and maintain it, if we really want everybody to enjoy the park, then we need to do a strategic planning according to the population, according to the needs, according to the resources that are available. And then we can say, okay, you can use it. We can all use the park. 20,000 people can use the park a year, or 10,000 people can. I know I go to Jersey and there's some places they won't let you into the park unless you're a resident.
I hear you. Thank you very much. Aisha.
Hi. To begin with, I just wanted to second what Domingo said as far as both the comments that he made about people targeting people within the parks, but also defund NYPD. That being said, my son is allergic to pollen and various trees. And so the park has not been a place that we have visited on a normal basis. So for me, going to the park has mostly been about events and parties. I mean, like barbecues that people held in the park. So that's like, for me to just go sit in the park on a regular basis, that's not been a part of my existence here in Northern Manhattan. But I do appreciate being able to engage when I do. That being said, one of the things that I have seen is that there is not enough garbage cans, but something that I see that's disturbing to me is people will have grills, like what are not really disposable grills, but because they're not sturdy, they don't stand up for more than one or two uses. People I've seen throw the grills into the river, as well as just leave them behind. And there really is nothing in the park to say, don't do that, put it here. Knowing that, I mean, there's institutions that pave their walkways according to people's normal path because they can't control how people are actually going to walk. And so why not just build the pathways like that? So I think that that's something that we should be doing in our parks as well. You know, we'd love for people to behave a certain kind of way, but you know, some things happen the way that they do. So why not accommodate for that? So I think that that's just having a place where you can participate in keeping things in the fashion that we would like them to be would make it easier for people to do so, because I personally have been in barbecues where it's a really long walk to get it to where it needs to be sometimes, or that there's just nothing to accommodate for whatever it is that needs to be happening. So just want to say.
Thank you. Sally.
Yeah, it's not, just so people understand, it's not just noise and it's not just trash. There's a huge environmental risk with people destroying the salt marsh, with the trash and all these other barbecue grills and everything else ending up in the river. So that's one of our concerns. I just wanted to check with parks. A few years ago, we actually did have a group that was distributing bags and helping with the cleanup. I just wanted to ask parks, once the barbecue areas are reopened, especially on the peninsula, will we be able to have PEP officers there during open hours? And will you still be planning on closing the peninsula at 10 o'clock?
So we're looking to partner with social distance ambassadors to hand bags out and hand masks out at barbecue areas. I believe the peninsula is 10 p.m., but I can verify that. And I know that Dykeman Fields is 10 p.m.
Okay.
Closure.
Thanks.
Nobles.
And thank you. I'll just keep this quick. This is more of a comment for folks on the line. So I just want to bring to everyone's attention that New York City Parks in 2019, and correct me if I'm wrong here, Chief of Staff, or Jennifer, but New York City Parks got about $534 million in 2019. Our police department gets $6 billion for their budgets, right? When we're talking about community policing, community services, more trash, special vehicles that pick up trash, more rangers, why don't we just take a little bit of that money and put it into our parks? So really, the friction here isn't between us and our cultures. The friction here, like Domingo said, is with getting more resources for our parks. So if that is the case, I would highly recommend take Jennifer Hoppa's advice, email, call, tweet, Facebook, your city councilman, the mayor, anybody in city government outside of our good folks here from the Parks Department, because they know all too well, about divesting, defunding the NYPD, even just a little bit, to bring more dollars to our parks. That is where the problem is. That's where your focus should be. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hear, hear.
I don't think anybody disagrees with needing more funding for parks. I think the last raised hand is Anastasia.
Hey, thank you all.
Speak up. Can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm just gonna follow up on what Nobles just said to give you guys a super easy way to do all those things. You can literally sign a petition, send a letter to the mayor, and send a letter to your city council person telling them to support parks and invest in our parks. A great time to do so with all of the eyes on the budget. So I can share that link. I'm just technologically challenged and can't figure out how to do so.
Just tell us, email it to me. And if you can also just say what the link is and people can write it down, and we can put it in the minutes, unless it's like one of those crazy long ones.
Sorry, literally give me just 1 second. It would be, go to ny4p, spelled like with the number 4.org/ see what we do. It's kind of long. I kind of want to send it to you. I'm sorry.
Okay.
It's a lot to spell out right now, and I'm taking everyone's time.
Put it in the Q&A section, Q&A or chat.
Yeah, if you could just put it in the comments.
Yeah, I can grab it and put it in the notes.
Or email it to me and I'll forward it to Nobles.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Okay.
this would be in support of the
Liz.
Fair Play campaign that I was referring to.
Yeah,
Exactly.
it's on the New Yorkers for Parks website. All you have to do is look up NY4.
Yeah,
And you can
if
find
you go to NY4P, NY4, the number 4P.org, you can find it pretty much on the website. It takes a couple of clicks.
Can I have a question?
You know, it's 10 minutes to 10. And so I really need to wrap it up. So I'm going to let Daryl have the last word, and then I'm going to wrap this up.
I didn't have anything. Sorry.
Okay. So this is, you know, Sixto is right. This is, he said that it's been going on for 20 odd years. I've been living in this community for 38 years. This was not a new conversation when I first moved here as a young woman. So, you know, this is a huge problem that in some ways keeps playing out in the same way, and in many ways has been dramatically exacerbated by COVID. I think that it's, you know, part of it is we need to be kinder to each other, and we need to make room for each other in public spaces. And I think we also really need to be firm, not yelling at the Parks Department, why aren't you doing your jobs, but firm with the mayor and the city council about why aren't you giving more money to things like trash pickups.
You're here.
You know, why don't they have an available vehicle that can pick up strategically placed dumpsters? You know, why don't we have a whole bunch of these sorts of things? So in part, it's a financial issue. In any event, it's 10 minutes to 10. This has been an incredibly long meeting. And although in some ways it felt a little bit chaotic, and I apologize for not getting to people as quickly as I might have in the queue, I do think that we heard a lot and we were able to share a lot. And although we don't all agree with each other, it was respectful, and I appreciate that. Inspector Harris, if you're able to share your email, since sometimes it's easier to, you know, email you conditions or photos of conditions, that would be great. I'm gonna take you off of mute.
Hello?
Hi.
Hi, so my email is my first name dot last name at parks.nyc.gov. And I just want to add, if there are any complaints or conditions, you can also call 311, and those would get routed to us as well.
Super, thanks very much. And the petition is on the ny4p.org. Look for the Play Fair petition and send letters to your local electeds. That would be Council Member Rodriguez. Not so much Assembly Member. It's not really the Assembly Member. It's not really the state senator. It's not really the congressman. This is a local issue. So the focus really has to be on Council Member Rodriguez, who I will say has been a huge friend to parks and has devoted millions of dollars in capital resources to our 660 acres of parks. And I think that he is sympathetic to the needs of parks. And I think that working with him in partnership and demanding that more budget be used in this way, I think he would be in favor of that. So with that, I would love to accept a motion to have a cold beer. I mean, a motion to adjourn.
All right, Liz, are we gonna put forth a reso in support of things related to budget and also potentially barbecue areas, or what are we thinking?
No, because the budgeting, I think so the reason why I really wanted to have this conversation, and thank you for reminding me of that. So I don't think it's helpful to have a reso on this. I think what's helpful is to have these really robust conversations that feel in some way don't really go anywhere because there's no reso on it. But because we've had this very long, very detailed, very representative of multiple perspectives conversation, we can much more comfortably, when we do our budgeting exercise in the fall, say, yeah, you know, we know what that is. And we know, based on these long and ongoing conversations that we've had about this, we feel comfortable in prioritizing these things when we do the budgets. So we're not going to do a reso this evening. Yeah, and now's not, it's not really the time for that. We would do that when we do the budgeting exercise in the fall.
No, that sounds like it makes sense. I guess I was just worried about like losing some of the content. And also I loved, like Jenny Boone, for example, mentioned the dumpsters and, you know, a
Yes.
couple of other ideas with like signage. And I just thought like if we could perhaps capture that, but maybe like
That's
you
what I
said,
got the minutes for.
That's what we have the
Okay.
minutes for. And just as a reminder to people, one of the things that I do when we, as the run up, so we do the budget exercise in October, and we have a preliminary conversation in September. And so one of the things that I do in advance of the September meeting is I go through all of the minutes of the prior year, and I say, these are the conversations that we had that had budgetary implications. So, you know, and some of them are programmatic in nature, like we need more trash pickup people. And some of them are capital in nature, like we need one of those forklifty pickup dumpster things. I'm sure there's a technical name for it. But, you know, we need that. That's clearly a capital thing. So there's capital pieces, and there's budget expense pieces. Part of what all of the community board committees do is we have these ongoing conversations, and they are iterative, meaning, you know, we have them, and when we have them again, we're building on the prior conversation, new information, new facts, new resources, new whatever. So there is, you know, sometimes there's a little bit of a Rod Serling quality to the conversations because we've been there before, but a lot of times it's having these conversations repeatedly over time that allows us to notice trends in our thinking, that allows us to realize that some problems have gone away, that other problems have gotten worse, and that some, by virtue of being persistent, need to be resolved in new ways. But with that, it's 4 minutes to 10. And to be perfectly
Liz,
honest,
and I would just also, I would just add, you know, in the meantime, if committee members, you know, have concerns, questions, you know, about pricing, you know, as it relates to the budget that we're going to do, Jennifer, Steve, and their staff can, you know, help us with that and look into, you know, how much things cost and, you know, what's reasonable once we get to the budgeting piece.
Thanks.
And Liz, I don't think some people know who Rod Serling is.
Okay.
Sorry.
Liz, I think I can also say that, I think I can also say that once our new budget is in place and once we know what the guidelines are going to be for social distancing and allowing gatherings in parks, the Parks Department will review the barbecue situation, and maybe we'll be able to report back to you in the at a future meeting.
thank you. It would also be really helpful in the same way that we came up with some areas that might be appropriate for urban gardening. It would be helpful if we had some input from you about what are areas that might be appropriate for additional barbecuing, otherwise known as grilling, by virtue of being, you know, safe from a fire perspective, away from residential properties, et cetera, et cetera. And with that, I would happily accept a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Any
Every time, you
objections?
and me. All right. Thank
Okay,
you.
motion by Nobles, second by Daryl.
All right.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Paola, I totally owe you a beer. This was long.
Thank you, Paola.
Thank you, everybody, and stay safe. I'll see you in the parks, and I'll see you on Zoom on July 14th.
All right. Take it easy.
Yay.
See you, everyone.
Bye.
Good night. Bye, Steve.
Who was that?
Me, Paola. Bye. Have a good night.
Oh, take care. Thanks a lot, Paola.
You're welcome.